Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of City Council to order and have you all stand for the national anthem. Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. It is my pleasure now to welcome Reverend Drew Madison. Reverend Madison is an ordained Wiccan priest from the Karelian nativist tradition. Originally from Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, Reverend Madison moved to Hamilton 5 years ago. He holds degrees in history, science, and adult education and is now working on a Master's of Divinity. He's a former naval officer, has served on both surface and submarine fleets with the Royal Canadian Navy, and has been posted to active duty locations around the world as a peacekeeper and in combat duty. Reverend Madison, please lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for the honor to be here today to do this. Spirit, and guardians of the north, ancient ones of the earth, I call thee to come forth and charge this circle with the power of tree and rock. Spirit, guardian of the east, ancient ones of air, I call thee to come forth and charge this circle with the power of the winds. Spirit, and guardians of the south, ancient ones of fire, I call thee to come forth and charge this circle with the powers of the winds. Spirit, guardians of the south, ancient ones of fire, I call thee to come forth and charge this circle with the powers of the flame. Spirit, guardians of the west, ancient ones of water, I call thee to come forth and charge this circle with the power of the tides. Spirits and guardians, join this circle. Blessings to you who sit in circle as our civic leaders. May the powers of the ancient gods and the spirits of the earth eternal bless this place and all who come here. May we learn together the lessons that give us peace and a giving spirit, that we may be of value to others. May your hearts be gentle. May your hearts and mind be still and open, and your spirit unshackled. May your awareness be keen, and your conscience clear, and your nature given. May you be a healing energy and be of benefit to all. May your work enrich others, and may you know that what matters, so that you may work together to lead this city. And now, as you deliberate, may the guardians stay if they wish, or leave if they must. In the name of the ancient Lord and Lady, so mote it be.
That night morning. Thanks so much, Reverend Drew Madison. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Other individuals in the media may also be audibly and or visually recording this meeting. Before we move on with the agenda, I want to acknowledge now the passing of a true Canadian and Hamilton hero, our own Private Stan Darch, who passed away at the age of 94. Private Darch was of the 1st Battalion Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, one of the last surviving veterans from the Second World War raid on Dieppe. He was captured by the Germans during the Allied attack on August 19, 1942, and spent the rest of the conflict in a German prisoner of war camp. Our sincerest condolences to Private Darch's family, and a touching thought for us around Council on Stan Darch's RHLI jacket was our City of Hamilton Dieppe pin. We acknowledge all of our Dieppe veterans on August the 19th, and of course on Remembrance Day again. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Added as a ceremonial activity this evening, recognizing the Dundas Real McCoy Senior Hockey Club as the 2014 Allen Cup champions. There are 8 added correspondence items noted as 514E from the law firm of Borden, Laudner, Gervais, respecting the Winona Fruitland Secondary Plan to be received, and F from Mr. Gaudette, respecting saying the Winona Fruitland Secondary Plan to be received. 517 from the Deputy Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, respecting the one-time ice storm assistance program to be received and referred to SMT for appropriate action. 518 from the Minister of the Environment in response to Council's letter respecting a province-wide national moratorium on hydraulic fracturing to be received. 519 from the Minister of Natural Resources in response to Council's letter respecting a province-wide national moratorium on hydraulic fracturing to be received. 520 from the Prime Minister of Canada respecting the Government of Canada's efforts to mark the end of our country's military mission in Afghanistan to be received. 521 from the Premier of Ontario in response to Council's letter respecting school closures and the Accommodation Review Committee process to be received. And finally, 522 from A.J. Clark and Associates respecting the Bimbrook Heights Edition, 139 Fall Fair Way, respecting item 7 in the Planning Committee report on today's agenda to be received. You have 2 added committee reports. 6.4, it's the Public Works Committee report with the motion to waive the 48-hour report rule. And 6.5, the Board of Health report with a motion to waive the 48-hour rule. 1 added motion, 7.8, it's the lifting of the tabled item to today's council meeting. It's the proposed official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment to permit a mobile home park and a seasonal trailer park at 57 and 58th 12th Concession Road East in Flamborough. And 2 added notices of motions, 8.1, the reconsideration of item 12C of the Planning Committee report 14004 respecting 170 Longwood Road North, and 8.2, the municipal representation on the Halton-Hamilton Source Protection, Water Protection Committee.
Motion, please, to approve the agenda as amended. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Johnson, all in favour. Thank you. Members of Council, any declarations of interest? Hearing none. On behalf of Council, it's my pleasure to highlight now the Dundas Real McCoy's Senior Hockey Club. Senior hockey has provided some of the greatest hockey over the history of the sport in Hamilton. And my great-uncle Paul Masinovich was on the 1946 Allen Cup team, losing to Calgary in the finals out west because a couple of their great players had caught influenza. But that was the Tattered Tigers of the Shillington, Connick, and Brady era. And then my uncle, not my great-uncle, had some great hockey games playing with the Stamford Carrios against Dundas, and Gord Harley on his team and Hal Hursley on Dundas, the 2 tough guys who filled the Dundas Arena back in the 1950s with great senior hockey. So, since 1946, we haven't had the expectation of a champion until now. And I'm going to call right now the man who is responsible for hockey in Dundas and one of the biggest hockey proponents in Hamilton, the general manager and associate head coach, Mr. Don Robertson, to introduce the team. We have a Gatorade bucket all ready to go, by the way. Don, welcome and congratulations. Please take the microphone and introduce our special guests.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's been a long time since Hamilton's won a national hockey championship. I believe Bob Morrow was mayor and Tom Jackson had recently been elected the Hamilton Tigers in 1919. And The mayor has eloquently formed his family tree in this process, and it's a great honor to speak in front of you people, and I'm hopeful that now that His Worship's decided not to run, that you won't all jump into the fray, because we're going to need some local representation. We can't change the whole group. So some of you hold steady and stay where you are, because as a great friend of mine told me, 90% of the time you get everything right and you're true leaders. The journey isn't always as smooth as we'd like it to see, but I have great respect for all of you. We've been around doing this for a long, long time. The Dundas Real McCoys, and hockey's a big part of the fabric of our community. And it takes an army of people, as you guys know. You're all going to hit the hustings soon to get elected. And we had in excess of 125 volunteers, and we had thousands and thousands of hours donated in time to make that a reality. We said we were going to bring Canada to Dundas, and we did. We said we were going to bring the Allen Cup to Dundas, and we did. What we didn't tell anybody is we were going to keep that son of a bitch right here. So we've done that. So none of this stuff happens. Sorry, Councillor? I'm pretty good at this if you want to get going.
Now he's smiling.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank Councillor Pursuta for attending so many games and being a great supporter, and so many of you that help us out, and we're grateful for the contribution the city made in helping us defer some of our expenses. And I can tell you, to a team, every team that came to Dundas enjoyed their experience. They loved it. They were accommodated. They all stayed in Darko's brand new hotels and the refurbished hotels downtown. I have no mechanism of equating those fabricated numbers that you turn it into $1 million or $20 million. I think that's for people that are far more creative than me, but I can tell you a lot of people loved our city. And when TSN, and I've only seen a little bit of it because my friends here were playing or on the bench with me, the introduction with the kids bringing the cup down, we talked about closing a road but found out we wouldn't get permission until June, so we did it anyway with a fire truck, and we probably skipped a beat there. But TSN had the kids bringing the cup in, and Dave Beeler from our group accepted it and walked it in, and the picturesque pictures that TSN had on their introduction and throughout the entire process of the Allen Cup beside the welcome to Dundas, and the Webster's Falls shots, and the on-ice logos that were as big as this circle that said Hamilton. I'm going to tell you, our organization did everything in our power to promote our community. And we're so proud of it. We give to charities every game that we play, but I'm telling you, we understand and appreciate where we live and where we come from. We're grateful for what you did, and we tried to give something back. We proudly wear a City of Hamilton patch on our shoulders when we go to Fort St. John, British Columbia, which is on the Alaska Highway, damn near in Alaska. Holy Christ, it's light up there 24 hours a day when we go. And I guess you guys can't say stuff like that, right? You got to be a little bit careful. But I can tell you, Councillor Ferguson, when he comes over on his tractor, who lives across the road, he can swear like a trucker when given an opportunity. I can say that now, can't I, Councillor? Because you've opted not to run for mayor, and you're only going to represent us locally, right? So you're the only one out, right, so far? Everybody else is in play here to run for mayor. What the hell did you get out for? Yeah, I want to rethink that.
Hockey, come on.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I'd like to introduce our head coach, Kenny Mann, who's won an Allen Cup with us in 1987. Kenny, come on down. Not to mention, you got to come down. He became a grandfather again this morning. I wasn't sure if he could get here, so. He and I have been together for over 30 years, won I don't know how many Robertson Cups and Ontario Championships, and it's great to be surrounded with good friends when you have good fortune. And Jay McKee, a veteran, if you'll come down, famous for the Buffalo Sabres. and came to our community to make a contribution. Jay was a player coach for us and made significant contributions on the way through. And if you think senior hockey doesn't matter to guys like Jay McKee, when Don Sherry in Coach's Corner talks about the Dundas Real McCoys winning a national championship and acknowledging people like Ryan Christie and Kenny Mann, and then on NBC, Doc Emery, when he starts talking about it on an NBC broadcast, that the Dundas Real McCoys won an Allen Cup in Canada with Jay McKee as the player coach. If you don't think that makes a difference in our sporting community, then you're wrong, because it does. So we're here to thank you. We're here. We brought a picture. It's by the you and Jake, and it's just a small picture that you might want to find some room. Chris, if you could maybe put it in your office, we'll put some Boston Bruin guys on it. That's the team that won a Canadian championship. Want to talk?
Yeah, go ahead. I want you to end it.
I don't have much to say, but thank Don for all the work he did. He was tireless over the year, and you know, to have somebody like Jay and a bunch of, we had 5, 6, 7 NHL guys playing their heart out, taking time away from their family and work, and to all come together. If it wasn't for Jay and help and others, I don't think we would have got there, but it was great. Thank you.
I'm a player, not really a speaker, so I'll keep this one short. Thanks for having us here today, Your Worship Council. I was very fortunate to play over 800 games in the NHL, and that was, for me, it was a dream come true just to play one game in the NHL. When my career finished, I got into coaching, and along the way, I got introduced to Donnie and Spud, and they offered me an opportunity to be part of something special, and that was to be a part of the Dundas Real McCoys. Played a portion of the year before we hosted the tournament, and then fully this year as a player and a coach. For me, a lot of people would think that playing at a lower level lower than the NHL wouldn't make something like this as special, but I think the most amazing thing in hockey throughout my whole life at any level is the guys in the dressing room, and that's from the players to the staff to the people that help out. It makes it special. You get a bond, you create a bond with everybody. So for me to win a national championship, which will be probably the last organized hockey game of my life, is a pretty amazing thing. So thank you for letting me. He wants me back next year. Getting old, my legs are burning this year. But it's really special, and thank you. I stayed here in the city. I'm living in Buffalo, and it was great. The reception was great. Plan was great. The guys in the room were incredible. So to have this in my resume or my repertoire for the rest of my life is pretty amazing. So thanks for having me here today with Don and Spud. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Jay, Kenny, you guys made a great contribution. The community really appreciate it. We had 7 former NHLers. And it's important that so many people say, you know, how do you do all this? And you pay the players and everything else. And we don't. Jay comes up. They play because they want to play. They play because they love the game. And for anybody that tells you that we're paying our hockey players to play, they play because things like this mean a lot to them. And the contribution that I did in my head over the weekend was all the players that came to this tournament, when you talk about a sacrifice, gave up a week from their families, whether they were from Bentley, Alberta, or Clarenville, Newfoundland. If you do the math, it was in excess of $200,000 they gave up in income and away from their family just to come. So if you think things like this don't matter, quickly, because, well, you guys are used to getting bored when people are talking, so I'll take all the time. I've got 45 minutes, right, Your Worship? Yeah. I don't get cable, but I've heard about it. So let me repeat myself again. So anyway, Grapes talked about it, but with this trophy here, the Canadian Senior Men's Hockey Championship started in 1890, and they played for the Stanley Cup. Until 1907, the last winner of the Amateur Stanley Cup was the Kenora Thistles, who participated in our tournament. for the last amateurs. Then they started paying guys and everything else. And John Ross Robertson, no relation, decided that he wasn't going to permit professional athletes to compete. He said, you take the Stanley Cup and you do what you want with it. We'll get another championship cup for the Dominion of Canada to play for. And so Lord Grey stepped up and said, I got a pretty good idea. And then a guy by the name of Sir Montague Allen, an industrialist out of Montreal, had this trophy built because it was the most prestigious in Canada. So he opted to send this thing here. So since 1908, we play for this. And the team that is now going to play in a refurbished, I guess, bad term, brand new Pan Am Stadium, Tim Hortons Stadium, who also sponsored our Allen Cup tournament, ended up second fiddle and ended up with a Grey Cup. So the Ticats played for that. We won this sucker. So anyway, I got nothing else. Thank you. You guys were great to us, and you should be happy. Thank you. Have a ring account? Because these things are about 60 grand.
Please sit down while we take a picture.
That's not nothing to you guys. You guys will make bigger mistakes than that tonight, I'm sure.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Just before we go on now with our agenda, there's one other Ken man in the audience who I want to introduce because of his recent appearance and a very exceptional run at the Boston Marathon. And I'm speaking none other than our media guy from CHML, Ken Mann. Ken Mann. Show us the shirt, Ken. Stand up, show us the shirt. There it is. So Hamilton has huge connections to the Boston Marathon because the marathon there started after our Bay race, and our Bay race was kind of a tune-up to go to Boston. And then in 1900, a big calamity happened. Foreigners won the Boston Marathon. They couldn't get over it. These foreigners finished 1, 2, 3. And they were all from Hamilton, Ontario. And so in 1926, a guy from Cape Breton named Johnny Miles won the Boston Marathon. But he decided, his father, he wanted to go to the Canadian city where athletic training was at its highest peak. And that was the city of Hamilton, Ontario. Because we had the Olympic trials in 1928. We were preparing for the 1930 British Empire Games, and so his father said, we're moving to Hamilton, Ontario, where we can train. And they lived in the house at the corner of Beechwood and Balsam, and Miles went on from Hamilton to win the 1929 Boston Marathon as a Hamilton resident. So we have some great connections there. Ken, congratulations. 3:15 was his time. It's an outstanding time. And all you have to do is run 50 miles a week. I should tell you the key to Boston is that you're required to run a qualifying time. Most of the big marathons, the New York and any ones that you hear, there's 26, 30,000 people, the London Marathon, you just sign up, pay your money, go in. Boston, you have to qualify for your age, and Ken did qualify. And then that's a very good time in Boston because when you start in Hopkinton, 26 miles away, there's a big crowd of about 10,000 or more. And so you're kind of excited and you're not really considering that you're probably going to run your best race. Plus you're crowded in with a lot of people. So to run that kind of a time, Ken, as a marathoner and a Boston veteran, I applaud you. And thank you so much for being here tonight. Ken Mann. And now, members of council, may I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the April 9th council meeting? Pearson, Johnson, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you, council. We have communication items 5.1 through 5.22 inclusive. First of all people, we have Sylvia Ruger, the National Director of the Start to Finish Running and Reading Clubs, requesting that May 14th be proclaimed as Day of Change. The recommendation is receive that. Ferguson, Partridge, all in favor. Carrie, thank you. Correspondence from Kathy Crowhurst, the Lupus Foundation, requesting May 10th be proclaimed World Lupus Day and the month proclaimed as well. Recommendation to receive that. Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Pasuto, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Mario Sergio, Minister responsible for seniors, requesting the month of June be proclaimed as Seniors Month. Pearson and Johnson, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from the Honourable Deb Matthews, respecting additional base funding for the Cities of Hamilton Land Ambulance Services Grant. Move that. Councillor Pasuta, Partridge, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Stephen Covey, President of Operation Lifesaver, requesting the proclamation of April 28th to May 4 as Public Rail Safety Week. Recommendation is we receive that. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Pasuta, all in favor. Thank you. Correspondence from Frank Cleese, MPP Newmarket Aurora, respecting First Responders Day, May 1st. Recommendation to receive that. Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Partridge, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from the Honourable Glenn Murray, Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation, in response to Council's letter requesting funding for Waterdown Memorial Hall. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pasuta, all in favor. Carried. This will be received and referred to the GM of Finance for appropriate action. Correspondence from the Honourable Linda Jeffrey, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, in response to the formal submission regarding a review of system for land use planning and appeals. The recommendation is that we receive this and refer to the General Manager of Planning for information. Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Johnson, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Carrie DeGorder, Director of Administration and the Town Clerk of Caledon, respecting the provincial plan review. The recommendation is we receive that. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Pearson, all in favor. Carried. And correspondence from the Town of Richmond Hill in responding to the letter from Caledon, respecting that. Recommendation to receive it again. Johnson, Pearson, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Mark Knight, Environmental Planner, Stantec, respecting the Union Gas Pipeline Project, information sessions and preliminary preferred route. The recommendation on this is that we receive it. Motion, Partridge, Pasuta, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Philip Stewart, Pound and Stewart Associates, to the Honourable Glenn Murray, respecting the naming of Golden Horseshoe Bay. The recommendation is we receive that. I'd like to move that. Councillor Collins, Councillor Marula, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Jean Major, Chief Executive Officer, Registrar, Alcohol and Gaming Commission, respecting Regulation 720 under the Liquor License Act. Councillor Johnson, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Duval.
Wow.
Councillor Johnson's first.
Thank you. This is a letter from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario, and it's talking about selling the wine in Ontario's farmers markets beginning May 1st, 2014. I just have a quick question to staff if we're prepared for this, because I've already been approached by my own farmers market in Binbrook to allow this to happen. So I don't know if anybody has that answer. If you don't, can you please get back to me about that? Yeah, I'm seeing a big no. No, but I would really appreciate it. We've got some interest already.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll certainly make sure that staff review and get back to you ASAP.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Jackson, did you wish to speak?
So, Mr. Mayor, I was just as well wondering, as we're going to refer this to the Acting General Manager of Planning Economic Development, Neil Everson, is it all farmers markets that would possibly be considered? There's farmers markets in some various BIAs of our city. So I'm just wondering if that could at least be put on the table as well for consideration, not just the main farmers market, if you will, on York Boulevard. Thanks,
So,
Mr. Mayor.
What you're calling for is a definition of eligible. Excellent. Look into that. I'm sure the city manager will. Councillor Duval?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And the same. I've been approached today on the same question: who's eligible? Are we going to carry it on? When it says appropriate action, I'm just wondering if staff is going to come back with a report and recommendations of what municipality has its own authority. I understand.
Well, the reference is for appropriate action, so would you speak to that? We'll get a report back.
Yeah, I think we have to, through you, Mr. Mayor, and so it's just a matter of which the timing of which committee we're going to appear in front of. So leave that with us, and we'll make sure we respond back.
Okay.
And so I'll move that.
Councillor Whiting?
Yeah, well, Mr. Mayor, I don't know, I don't believe this council's taken a position on corner stores, liquor and corner stores, and I know that there's a fairly significant lobby going on there. I just want to be sure that whatever position we take is consistent. I'm not a big fan of opening up selling of liquor in any location, period. So I clearly would be wanting to know exactly what the implications are, liabilities, risk, and conditions.
Okay. Thank you, and I'm sure we'll hear that back. So all in favor? Thank you. Correspondence from Lisa Raitt, the Honourable Minister of Transport. In regard to our Canada Post 5-point action plan, recommendation is we receive that. Any comments? Receive that. Councillor Marula, Collins, all in favor? Thank you. Correspondence respecting the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. This is 5.14A, B, C, D, F. I would like to remain consistent whenever we have a letter that comes in pertaining to a planning file, that we send it to the planner on that file. And in this case, it would be Michelle Sergi and Alyssa Mahood. So that's what I would like to move at this time, please.
So you're moving everything down to
F, and that is all pertaining to the Fruitland-Winona secondary plan.
Okay. Seconded by Pearson. All in favor? Clerk's duly noted. Correspondence from the Dundas Community Council respecting a impact study of the proposed closure of Parkside High School in Dundas. The recommendation is to refer this to General Manager Planning ECDEV for a report to the Planning Committee. Ferguson, Pearson, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from Minister Shirelli, Minister of Energy. Update on provincial initiatives. And so there's the referral recommended to GMs of Planning, ECDEV, Public Works, and Finance and Corporate Services for appropriate action. Any comments? Councillor Johnson move that. Seconded by Pasuda. All in favor? Carried. Correspondence from Deputy Minister Laurie LeBlanc respecting a one-time ice storm assistance program. Recommendation to receive and refer to SMT. Councillor Jackson.
So, Mr. Mayor, we've talked about this before, and I just want to make sure, because it talks about here by a May deadline, to make sure our claim forms are in. And as we know, we did get hard hit last December 22nd. So, Mr. Mayor, maybe through you to General Manager Mike Zagarek. Mike, I thought that we had already put in our request for some compensation. I thought we've had correspondence back in the past saying that we probably, hopefully, would be eligible to some degree. And now I'm seeing here from the Minister of Municipal Affairs, get your claim forms in. Maybe Mike would have a comment on this, Mr. Mayor, through you, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Council did approve a resolution requesting funding as it relates to the December 2013 ice storm. Under this new program, there are two new deadlines. One is a deadline for expression of interest on June 16, 2014, so we will bring that to the appropriate committee and council, as well as there is a deadline as it relates to all claims under this program of August 31st, 2014, and we will ensure that we coordinate across all the departments to ensure that we leverage as much funding as possible under this program under that deadline.
Excellent answer and encouraging news, Mike. So at the appropriate time, Mr. Mayor, I'll refer to the senior management team for a report back at the appropriate time. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Any further speakers? I'd like to move that. Councillor Pearson. Councillor Jackson, second, and all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Correspondence from the Honourable Leona Aglukark, Minister of the Environment. In response to the Council letter respecting a province-wide and national moratorium on hydraulic fracturing or fracking, the recommendation is to receive that. Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Partridge, all in favor? Carried. Correspondence from the Honourable David Orzetti, Minister of Natural Resources, respecting the same thing. Recommendation to receive that. Pearson, Partridge, all in favor? Recommendation from correspondence from the Right Honourable Stephen Harper, Prime Minister of Canada, respecting the Government of Canada's efforts to mark the end of our country's military mission in Afghanistan. Move to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Clark, all in favor? That's carried. I may just say that you will be hearing some detail of Hamilton's participation in the May 9th event. We will have a significant military exercise here at City Hall, but you will be fully made aware in due course. Correspondence from Kathleen Wynne in response to the Council letter respecting school closures and the Accommodation Review Committee process. Recommendation to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Johnson, all in favor? And correspondence from Stephen Fraser, planner, A.J. Clark and Associates, respecting Binbrook Heights addition. Yes, Councillor.
Again, sir, just to keep up with the same consistency, I'd like to refer this letter to the planner that's on the file for the 139 Fall Fairway, please.
Seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor? Councillor Pasuta, a motion, please, on the communications as amended.
Moved by myself and second by Councillor Brenda Johnson that Council Communications 5.1 through 5.22 be approved as amended as follows.
All in favor? Councillor Partridge, a motion, please, to move into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the committee reports.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robert Pasuta that Council move into Committee of the Whole for consideration of the committee reports. Thank you.
All in favor? Turn the chair over now to the Deputy Mayor for the month of April, Councillor Rob Pasuta.
Okay. The Audit Finance Administration Committee presents its third report and respectfully recommends item 1. Item 2. Item 3. Item 4. Councillor Pearson, I understand you have an amending motion to item 4. I'd like to introduce your motion now, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's been moved by myself, second by Councillor Brad Clark, that item 4 of the Audit Finance and Administration Committee report 14-003, respecting report CM 14002, Employer Paid Parking Value for Money Audit Management Action Plan, be amended by adding a subsection B to read as follows. Employer Paid Parking Value for Money Audit Management Action Plan CM 14002, citywide item 8.2. B, that the city manager and senior management team be directed to report back to the Audit, Finance and Administration Committee respecting compliance with the employer paid parking policy and its associated costs by April 2015. Second by Councillor Clark.
Moved by yourself and second by Councillor Clark. All in favor? Item 5. Councillor Clark, I may have a motion on the report as amended, please.
Yes, sir, you may. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Maria Pearson, that the third report of the Audit Finance Administration Committee be adopted as amended in the information section received.
All in favor? The Planning Committee presents its sixth report and respectfully recommends item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, item 6, item 7. Item 7, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, this is regarding 139 Fall Fairway. This was, if Planning Committee remembered, back in the fall of last year, actually, this was actually tabled pending the flooding report from the Binbrook Village. The Binbrook Village flooding report came out. It was received. We've corrected a lot of the low-hanging fruit and still have some ways to go. But I'm happy to say that up to this point, knock on wood, we have not had any flooding issues. And now this is why it's before us today for approval. Thank you.
So, Councillor Johnson, I have Councillor Clark in the speakers list, but I understand you have an amendment to item number 7?
Yes, I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Judy Partridge that applications for amendment in the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw number 464 and approval of a draft plan of the subdivision known as Binbrook Heights Addition on lands located at 139 Fall Fairway be approved as amended. And it's in front of you right now.
It's in front of us. And, okay, thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Clark?
Deputy Mayor, just 5.22, which was received earlier and directed to the planning staff. There was a request for an additional condition being attached, and I'm not sure whether or not our staff actually reviewed it and are prepared to comment on it. It reads here that the owner enters in an agreement with the adjoining landowners to the south that ensures the timing and orderly development of blocks 148 through 154, inclusive on draft plan, Binbrook Heights Addition, and blocks 110, 116, inclusive on plan 62M1128, and block 88, 62M1078, on terms and conditions satisfactory to the city, but I don't see it in the conditions. So that's why I'm asking.
Councillor Johnson, please.
If I can,
respond.
yes, the motion that's in front of you right now, it actually took the verbiage from that letter and put it right into this motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was looking actually for it in the report. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So any further speakers on this one? So it's moved by yourself, Councillor Johnson, the amendment, seconded by Councillor Partridge. All in favor? Thank you. Item number 8, Councillor, and on that one, Councillor Collins, would you like to introduce your amending motion for that first, for item number 8?
I can, sir. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pearson, I believe, wanted to second this one. And it's regarding the Fruitland Winona Secondary Plan and Official Plan Amendment. That item 8 of the Planning Committee Report 14006 respecting Fruitland Winona Secondary Plan and Official Plan Amendment PED 13099B be amended by adding the following subsections 9, 10, and 11. 9 reads that Policy 7472C Neighborhood Park Designation be amended to read as follows: that the city shall require developers to construct neighborhood parks on the city's behalf during the construction of the subdivision, provided an adequate amount of parkland is available and the capital funding for the park development is available. Number 10, Mr. Chairman, will read regarding the timing of infrastructure improvements that the following policy be added to subsection 7417, implementation policies of the Fruitland Winona Secondary Plan, in order to ensure that transportation improvements required to facilitate development in the Fruitland Winona Secondary Plan are constructed when needed. City may adopt specific transportation phasing strategies or arrange funding agreements for the delivery of road infrastructure projects. And item 11 will read that the section 74141J block servicing strategy policies amended to add the following policy: a phasing strategy for external road infrastructure to ensure that the required upgrades are implemented to support growth, subject to the following: 1, approved capital budget funding for the road infrastructure projects; 2, the availability of storm and sanitary outlets; and 3, the servicing needs of abutting developments are coordinated with the road project. And then you'll find after that there is an amended copy of the entire report with that revised motion, with the revision, reading or printed in bold, And I am, Mr. Chairman, just to be clear, we did speak to number 9, that's referenced as part of this amendment at the committee. We spoke to the issue of accelerating the park development to accommodate the requests that we had received from those people who attended as delegates. However, I'm not certain where 10 and 11 have come from, so I will not be able to answer that question. I would refer those questions to staff.
Okay, so Councillor Collins, the amending motion is moved by yourself and seconded by Councillor Pearson, I believe. Okay. I have a speakers list. First, I had Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Whitehead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I unfortunately was incapacitated for the 2 weeks and unable to be here during the Planning and Economic Development Committee discussion. But I have some concerns because I did participate in the secondary plan process and listened to many of the people that spoke. And there was a determination, I think it started off with 6-story buildings and then it went down to 4-story buildings. And there was concerns, rightly so, presented by the ward councillor, of concerns of the farmers. And it was about the air drainage path, I think that was the terminology that was used. And an air drainage analysis brief. What staff had recommended, Mr. Chair, was that with the 4-story designation, that prior to them being able to actually go ahead with it, they would have to provide independently an air drainage analysis brief to ensure that there wouldn't be any impacts relative to the concerns raised from the agricultural community. So knowing that you have a study that's in place and it will determine whether or not they can go 4 stories, I'm a little confused on how we went from 4 stories down to 3.5. So could I get an explanation from the staff that supported the 4 stories and supported the drainage analysis brief? What have I missed in the last 2 weeks?
The Robichaud, please.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, a 3.5-story building would still provide the opportunities for a full range of housing types within that designation, whether they would be for traditional townhouses, stacked townhouses, masonettes, or apartment buildings. You would still maintain the same number of units. It would just sort of change the architectural design and the look of the units, so that although you would still have either 3 stories and a half story in the sort of the attic story, or a raised ranch type situation where you had a half story located within the basement or the cellar, so that you would still be able to achieve the same number of units. It would just be in the same built form. It would just be the design of the units would look different. So that was the discussion that took place at Planning Committee between the merits of 3.5 stories versus 4 stories.
So again, what is the... So I guess the question is, because I remember asking explicitly, is this process going to be in place to ensure that the concerns of the area drainage are going to be dealt with? And I was told yes, because they'll be required to do the analysis brief prior to any application, which satisfied me in regards to the 4-story. You've changed that. So what was and the other question I asked her in that period of time was, why are we going 4 stories? And I was told by staff that from an economic point of view, economies of scale, that the 4-story was more marketable or I guess viable. So I think it was the term, because you have mix. You could have the commercial and then you have the residential. The 4-story would be more viable in regards to investment opportunities in that corridor. So I guess I need to know what has changed in regards to that position of staff, and what has changed in respect to the 4-story, bringing it down to 3.5.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, as I indicated, whether it's a 3.5 or a 4-story, you would still be able to achieve the same number of units. It would just be a different design response in terms of how those units would look. You would still allow for the opportunity in those areas where you would have ground floor commercial and the number of units above it. So if you had the mixed use buildings, so we're maintaining the intent of what was originally recommended by staff in terms of the secondary plan. It would just be a different architectural response into what those units would look like. So they would be still ground related residential units, and as I indicated, they could either be in the form of a townhouse development, a mixed use building, masonettes, or a low rise apartment building. With respect to the air drainage, it was always a policy that as part of the block servicing strategies, or as through the formal consultation process, that the proponents would be required to undertake those studies. This wording just further elaborates on who would be doing those studies and and how those studies would be conducted. But the requirements for those air drainage studies was originally in the secondary plan, and that wording is just being refined here with this amendment.
I appreciate that. I don't think, Mr. Chair, I'm going to try again, but I don't think the question was answered. The question is, I know you're indicating that this is similar and that it's just a different form and different design. I appreciate all of those comments. What I haven't heard in those comments is, how do we end up from the 4-story down to 3.5?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, there were some discussions about eliminating the height or going to a lower height, 2 stories or 3 stories in height, and a maximum 3-story building was something that staff could not support, whereas the 3.5 stories would still allow for the same density and unit yield that you could get with a 4-story building, but a proposal to put a maximum height of 3 stories along Barton Street was not something that staff could support. So it was through those discussions that it was adopted by Planning Committee for a maximum height of 3.5 stories.
So this is a compromise between who was asking for the 2-story?
Sorry, there was concerns expressed through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. There was concerns expressed by the community as a result of the public consultation and at the Planning Committee about the height. And I believe there was a motion was brought forward or there was discussion about just a maximum of 3 stories. Some of the residents indicated they only preferred 2 stories, but at that Planning Committee meeting, it was agreed to go with a maximum height of 3.5 story meeting. So 3.5 stories last week.
So this was a compromise. This wasn't the staff's recommendation. This was the staff compromising, understanding what was being requested by the community.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, in response to the public or the delegations, yes, there was a motion was put forward at Planning Committee to put a maximum height of 3 stories. At the last week's Planning Committee meeting, I indicated that staff could not support a maximum of 3 stories, but 3.5 stories would enable us to maintain the intent of the secondary plan, still provide for the diversity of land uses. It would just be a different design response, and on that basis, the 3.5 stories was approved at Planning Committee.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. I have a speakers list here. It'd be Councillor Pearson, Councillor Clark, Councillor Duvall, and then Councillor Johnson. So Councillor Pearson, please.
Deputy Mayor, thank you. And if it's to the motion, I just had comments with regards to the whole recommendation at the end, not to the motion. I'm satisfied with the motion. I seconded it. I'm pleased with this moving forward. So if you can come back to me later, just comments on the whole Stony Creek, Fruitland,
Okay,
unless no one has any comments on it. I have no problem. Okay, so Mr. Deputy Mayor, it's been a long drawn out, it was a long drawn out day that day, and we didn't get a chance to really put comments forward as far at the end of the meeting because, as you know, it was a long day. But I did want to put forward tonight, and I think it's appropriate that, you know, one of the things that kept coming out with this plan, and I commend the good councillor who's tried so hard that she wanted a plan that there will be no changes going forward in the future. And I hope that comes to fruition. We all know what it's like when we get applications for rezoning in our ward. And, you know, this process has been long drawn out, 7 years plus. And it's not finished yet. It's probably another 40 years out for a full build out. But I just wanted to mention that, you know, it is a secondary plan, and we all have to remember that going forward. It's just laying down a mapping that says this is potentially what can go here. And to the residents that have come out to numerous meetings, to the Citizens Advisory Committee members, everybody who has contributed valuable input, thank you. And I know our staff know how many times, how many meetings we've had, how many open houses, etc. To our staff, and I think that, you know, I wanted to recognize them at the very beginning, but to our staff who have been involved through this long process, especially through the CAC process. I'm going to name some staff members, and I apologize if I've missed some, but some of the ones that attended all the meetings, worked with the community groups. Andrew McDonald, Margaret Fazio, Brenda Case, who's not here any longer, Christine Lee Morrison, Michelle Sergi, Alyssa Mahood, Diane Morielli, and I know there's many more as our heads of departments, etc. Joanne Prowl, who was acting director of planning as when we went into the latest meeting where we had the open house in Winona in February. You know, everybody has worked so very, very hard to try and put something down that people can say, at the end of the day, this is workable. And that's, I think, all we can walk away with is it is workable. And see how things move in going forward. I mean, if there's anything to say, you know, I know the fear that the residents are putting forward. I know they're concerned their areas are going to be affected forever now. And I would say it would be no different than the residents west of Fruitland Road that I represent, who over the last 40 years have had intensifications. We've had the DeWitt Farm, the Millen Farms, I'm trying to remember the name of the gentleman on the north side of Barton Street, the Whitfield Farm. We've had numerous farms in that area, and it's all housing development now. Various types of housing developments. I have some high-rises, mid-rises, stacked townhouses. You know, they've all worked out to be pretty complementary over the course of the last, I've been in that neighborhood 30 years, and certainly seen a lot of changes. And, you know, if I had to say as I drive around my neighborhood, I can't say I'm unhappy with any of the developments that have gone ahead. And, you know, those houses don't sit empty very long when a for sale sign goes up. So I'm hoping that the success will be there going forward in Winona. But I wanted to put those comments forward. I know there's a lot of landowners that are affected. There's going to be servicing issues coming forward in the future because servicing has to come from Barton Street up to number 8. So development as it progresses will take time. And to everybody, all I can say is that, you know, all the residents, be it Ward 10, 11, 9, any residents that came out to participate in this process, thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Clark, please.
Deputy Mayor, I want to state I'm glad that the councillor for Ward 8 is feeling better. He really did have a terrible bout of pneumonia and was quite sick for pretty much 2 weeks. So been there, done that, not pleasant, and glad you're back. With regards to the issue of the 6 down to 4, down to 3.5, I would urge my colleagues to remember that when the general manager, Mr. McCabe, was here, we actually did, I was sitting I think in this chair at the time, asked whether or not Mr. McCabe would be supportive of a 3.5 level zoning, and would we have to hire planners, and he indicated that the staff would be supportive of 3.5, and that was many months ago, quite candidly. So we had already started to move to that compromise back then. This has been an 8-year process, and in the middle of it we had the interesting twist of having an urban official plan approved by the Minister of Municipal Affairs quicker than we had anticipated, which subsequently voided a decision of this council and this committee on this particular secondary plan, and we had to start over, which is really a legal technicality, but it certainly added to the pain and confusion within the community in Winona. To the staff, all of the staff in planning that were involved in any way, shape, or form on this, Mr. Chairman, they did a yeoman's job. This was a comprehensive, complex planning document from the beginning 8 years ago. It graduated from that to rocket science at one point and then came back down to a planning document in the end. They were professional, they were courteous, they expedited recommendations, and clauses were rewritten, and again, they worked with the community in every shape they could to reach out to the community, to engage them, and to find some form of resolution that was acceptable to most, and it would never be all. So I want to make that clear. Mr. Robichaud picked up where Mr. McCabe and Joanne Prague came in and helped, and all the way down the line, I could probably name off about 10 or 12 staff members. So earnestly, you really did a hell of a job on this file, and I thank you. You also put up with a lot of nonsense from the community, not the entire community, a small portion of the community that and they were community leaders, but they started to make, would define them, Mr. Chairman, as scurrilous public comments that hurt the reputation of professionals who were providing us unfettered expert advice. I thought the comments were unacceptable. I thought the comments were not respectful. And most definitely, they were not truthful. So to those community leaders that did that, what it's worth, I personally admonish, and I'm sure my colleagues agree, that's not how we're supposed to engage in this community. To the 99% of the community that engaged in a respectful and civil way and really shared their comments in an earnest attempt to move forward on this, I sincerely appreciate their patience throughout this entire process. They also deserve our thanks and gratitude. And finally, to my colleagues on the Planning Committee, this was a two-term initiative. Councillor Farr chaired a public meeting. I chaired a public meeting. It's gone down. Councillor Partridge chaired a public meeting. So we all shared the pain, and now we have some gain. We have a reasonable, pragmatic compromise to a secondary plan that will take, as one of my colleagues indicated, probably 15, 20 years to be fully built out. It is not totally received well with everyone in that community, but I can tell you most of them are comfortable that the decision has been made and we're moving forward. So thank you to my colleagues tonight on the council to support it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Duval.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And can I just ask Mr. Robichaud, what on the amendments 10 and 11, if you could describe why were they added in there?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. These amendments are to ensure that the transportation infrastructure is planned and delivered in conjunction with development occurring. They are integrated in terms of the timing, the funding, and the way that transportation infrastructure is delivered. So as part of the block servicing strategy, we will be seeking to have that coordination of the necessary transportation infrastructure upgrades occurring when development occurs, as opposed to there being a lag between when the roads are upgraded after X number of people have moved into the community and the neighborhood, which then causes undesirable situations.
Okay, thanks. So when I look at 10 and it says arrange funding agreements for the delivery of road infrastructure projects, is that through the developer?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, that is correct. There may be through front-ending agreements with the developers or requiring the developers as a consortium to provide for those infrastructure upgrades, depending on the size and the scale of the development that's coming forward.
Okay, and then I understand through 11 that a phasing strategy for external road infrastructure based on approved capital budget funding for the road infrastructure projects. Is this where we go through a yearly budget, or nobody's going to be jumping the queue?
Through Mr. Deputy Mayor, that is correct. There may be a city share depending on the nature of the works. There are unique challenges in this area with Barton Street because of the existing industrial development along Barton Street. So there may be those city shares and how we actually fund it and deliver that those road network upgrades.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the answers.
Thank you, Councillor Duvall. Councillor Clark, and then Councillor Johnson.
I just wanted to clarify on those two items that Councillor from Ward 7 had indicated. That came up through an amendment that I had raised at the committee. We've experienced across the city situations where the planning has been approved, but the growth management of the planning is not in sync with the planning. I would point to Rymel Road in the Elfrida neighborhood, where we have a 2-lane road throughout Rymel, all the way down to Councillor Jackson's ward, and down to Ward 7 and beyond, I might add, and it has been severely commercialized, if you would say. I shouldn't say severely. Significantly commercialized, and all that residential development on Summit, it's still a 2-lane road. If you look at the plans back when that was approved, it was supposed to be a 4-lane road with a center turning lane. Unfortunately, the planning didn't match up with the growth management. So this is an intent on this one, given the amount of growth that's expected, that there's some semblance of convergence on the two. So that's the intent of the motion, and I think our staff understand the intent, and hopefully we'll be able to work through that process. And we likely should consider this citywide at another point. This is just our first kick at a can at dealing with a real strategic issue that we have, but I think it's a formidable one, and this is worthy of that effort. And then perhaps later this year we can deal with a policy that would be more citywide to match up growth with planning to ensure that we don't have these issues in other neighborhoods, like Waterdown.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Clark. Councillor Johnson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. As was said before, it's a very convoluted file. It started back in 2007, I believe. The plan before you, with its amendments, came forward to the public in 2010, prior to the election. And since that time, I have literally spent endless hours with staff and public to address their concerns. And as you know, the Planning Committee did have a public meeting back last spring. I opposed that plan for 4 reasons: density, height, community park location, and Collector B had no south direction at all. So there were 4 reasons why I opposed it. It goes to the minister. The minister approves the urban official plan first. So it has to come back for another public process. So at that time, we had another marathon meeting. The Planning Committee passed the motion to allow the ward councillor to work with the public, the staff, to amend the current plan. So how do we do that? How do we get back out to the public and do it in a timely fashion so it can get back to the minister, because there was a time frame put on it. So we put together an open house, and thanks to Joanne Prowl for organizing. We had over 30 staff there, and I'm just going to highlight some of those that were here. Michelle Sergi, who's here, Chris Murray, you had Mike Krikopoulos there, Steve Robichaud was there, our city solicitor Janet was there, we had Gary Moore was there, and Margaret Fazio was there. We had a lot of the senior staff there to help the residents voice their concerns and hear their questions. And residents were actually encouraged to write on the easels or write on the comment sheets that were provided. And over 250 people came out to this open house. And they wrote their comments down on those easels, and they wrote them down on comment sheets. The independent consultant who was organizing everything compiled all those comments and put it in a report that looks like this. And the four main issues that came out: density, height, Collector Road, or the Fruitland Road bypass, and the position of the community park, and expropriation. Sound familiar? So then we had another public meeting. We brought it here, and the staff had, not a public meeting, sorry, the staff came back and they did a presentation, and again, 4-hour meeting. The park got pulled away. We made it very clear to the residents we're not going to expropriate them for any development purposes or for the park. But other than that, not much has changed. After all the effort we put into that file, why wouldn't we listen? As one speaker stated last Tuesday, the community expected more. The residents have been very clear, stated their concerns, and they, in my opinion, were essentially ignored. If we insist on ignoring the community, then why would we ignore a $1.2 billion industry? Agricultural lands are protected by two different ministries. One is the Municipal Affairs and Housing. They brought up the Greenbelt. The Ministry of Natural Resources came up with the Niagara Escarpment Plan. And these lands abut that protected area. We even brag as a municipality that Canada Bread and Maple Leaf came to our city, and we're 65% agriculture, and those two facilities are agricultural accessories. Last Tuesday, the Planning Committee learned that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing designated green development at 70 persons per hectare, 70 jobs and persons per hectare in 2011. In 2012, the Golden Horseshoe experienced a frost that killed millions, and I mean millions of dollars of tender fruit due to these frost pockets. And for some of you that don't understand, and I've tried to explain it the last time, I'll just do it very quickly. Farmers have known about this phenomenon for generations. It's called air drainage. It comes off the escarpment in the wintertime. It's cold air. It goes over through the lake. It gets warmed up and comes back. And in the summertime, it's the reverse. The warm air goes over, cools down, and comes back. Winona dodged bullets in 2012 because we're not as heavily dense populated as Beamsville and Vineland. We have older settlements there. Things are more spaced out. The air drainage phenomenon has been recognized and respected by farmers near the escarpment for generations. Murray Puttycombe, who has been farming for over 40 years, can tell you exactly where his frost line is. Any physical changes on his farm impacts that frost line and creates frost, which will kill the buds. Science is starting to play catch up. The Vineland growers actually hired consultants to take a look at the bud hardiness. I talked to that consultant who gave me the wording in front of you today. It's common knowledge that, as I said, Winona dodged those bullets. Where the development is newer and more intense, it has a more negative impact on the frost pockets. And I would argue that the minister could revisit those 70 persons per hectare in this area if air drainage was presented to them. We protect wetlands, we protect ANSIs, we protect core and heritage lands. Why wouldn't we protect ag lands the same way? The local developers have made it very clear they don't want the heights and density. They stated they have no intention to build them higher. So why would we cause the local businesses more hardship because they have to apply for official plan amendments to build exactly what the public have been asking for all along? Again, it is Groundhog Day. I want to be recorded as opposed to this secondary plan for the Fruitland Winona lands because density and height, community park is in the wrong location, and the southbound Collector Road hasn't been decided. I believe, and I think you do too, your residents and my residents need to be heard. And this plan just isn't listening to them. So I am going to be recorded as opposed, please.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. So on item number 8, and Councillor Collins, you moved to a second amending motion is seconded by Councillor Pearson. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Johnson and myself. Be recorded as opposed. Thank you. On the motion as amended, all in favor? Thank you. Opposed to the main motion as amended. So
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is both of you opposed
right.
the amendment and the motion
Yes,
as amended.
That's true. Thank you, Councillor Clark. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Marilla. So we're on to item number 9. So just, if I may pass the chair quickly on this one to Mayor Bertina. So we did discuss fees for farm buildings and greenhouses. It's been an issue for me, been an issue for many of the farmers throughout Hamilton with the fees. We had a comparison to other municipalities. When we reach out to Leamington is like 99 cents a square foot, relatively cheap. We have cucumber producers here in Hamilton who have to compete with them in the market. I think we need to review all of the fees and reach farther out than what we have. Staff did some research on it, but some of the numbers I'm not comfortable with, and then we need to do research. And I'm going to be doing my own research and then with staff too. But we need to really look at the fees and support agriculture. I think the city here is pretty proud of what the agriculture we have, but we need to look at this and really take into account the value that agriculture brings to Hamilton. And, I don't like this. We compare other ones. Maybe we could be lower than everybody else, in fact, and support our farmers. So, Mayor Bertina, I'll take the chair back on that one. And Councillor Clark?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I think we should be just not receiving it, but referring it back to Mr. Zagaric and Mr. Robichaud to actually do what you've been speaking of. I spoke with Mr. Zagaric earlier today, and I won't speak for him now because that's not fair. But my understanding is that there is an opportunity for us to look at this a little bit more closely and do the comparator. So I would ask Mr. Zagaric to just comment quickly, and then we could go from there.
Okay, Councillor Clark, thank you. Mike?
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, in the context of the current review of our development charges, the issue with respect to greenhouses versus other indoor agricultural facilities, and I believe the discussion earlier today at the DC Stakeholders Committee was with respect to indoor cannabis facilities. The discussion arose with respect to fees and charges as it relates to greenhouse. We will be looking as part of the DC background review in terms of greenhouses versus other facilities, and I can work and we will work with planning as well as taxation to look at the issue with respect to greenhouses. And as was identified earlier with respect to Leamington, one important consideration is with respect to development charges or other permits and fees and charges, that we also look at rate charges as well. Because as I understand it, the charges for water and wastewater vary across municipalities as it relates to greenhouse facilities. So we will look at all the fees and charges as it relates to these facilities. And in terms of the development charge background study and the DC Stakeholders Committee, we can try to report back with some of those impacts in terms of the competitiveness of our fees and charges in general.
Thanks. Councillor Clark?
Thank you, Councillor. So myself and Councillor Pearson, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Partridge sit on the Development Charges Sub-Review Committee, and we've been meeting now for months dealing with the next 5-year cycle for development charges, and we're close to a recommendation. It came up in that meeting earlier today with regards to looking at the cannabis situation, as many of my colleagues were suggesting, looking at that in terms of an industrial use. That committee asked them to look at a classification of industrial use because they're not really greenhouses. They're more like large safes or vaults on the ground. I don't know what else to describe them, but they're kind of like Fort Knox, but in Canada. They're going to come back with that review. We also asked them to look at the development charges, the fees, as well as the water rates, because in some municipalities, they're charging a different water rate for greenhouses and then lowering the DCs. They're basically charging for the use of the water, which seems to be a pragmatic approach in terms of how you would deal with the greenhouses. So we've asked for a more comprehensive document to come back. It may not form a part of the actual development charge review recommendations, more likely an addendum after that, but it is coming, and so I just wanted council to know that that is being dealt with, and yourself and Councillor Johnson and Partridge, who are dealing with the rural side of it, and I would expect that we'll have that shortly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. I have Councillor McCaddy, then Councillor Ferguson. Councillor McCaddy.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I just wondered if this issue had been to the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee for comment. You and I and Councillor Ferguson had the opportunity to look at the rural zoning, which is just being applied, and there were some changes made to how that may proceed, which I think were positive. And it sounds like there may be some opportunities to revisit this as well, but just wondering what that committee had to say. I wonder, you said on that, as does Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Johnson, I believe. Just perhaps a comment from you or others on what that committee had to say.
Councillor Johnson, if you want.
Yeah, the Hamilton Wentworth Farmers Association actually came in and worked very closely with the staff and on some of the changes, and they were about the the greenhouses. They were more about how much space they can take up as far as lot coverage was concerned, but not about development charges, because it wasn't an issue at the time. It's zoning, not fees.
There wasn't a specific discussion on permit fees was before us here today, so I think that's another reason to table this and have that conversation. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCaddy. Councillor Ferguson, please.
Chairman, based on this new information, I think I heard a motion by Councillor Clark to refer it back to staff. I'd like to second that motion, and it can include, as Councillor McCaddy suggested, recirculating it back to the Agriculture and Rural Affairs, but I'm enlightened by Mr. Zagarik's comments about the whole DC review and how greenhouses may be looked at again. I know this was an issue of planning, but we, as you know, Mr. Chairman, ran into a bit of a wall on it, and so I'd be happy to second that motion and refer it back to staff.
The speakers on, so Councillor Clark, and your motion is to refer it back to staff and to send this off to the Ag and Rural Affairs Committee too for comments. So seconded by Councillor Ferguson. All in favor? Councillor Clark?
We may want to wait to get the summary report back from staff so that the Ag and Rural Affairs actually has something to contemplate.
Okay. Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Item number 10. Item number 11. Councillor Johnson, may I please have a motion on the report as amended, please?
Actually, I gave it to Councillor Pearson because I don't want to move it because I'm opposing number 8, so I can't move the whole thing.
Thank you. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. It's moved by myself, second by Councillor Judy Partridge, that the 6th report of the Planning Committee be adopted as amended in the information section received.
All in favor? Opposed, Councillor Johnson? Okay, I guess I should be too then. Councillor Johnson and myself opposed. We're later, Councillor. The General Issues Committee presents its 9th report and respectively recommends item number 1, item number 2, item number 3, item number 4. Councillor Farr on item 4.
Yeah, I just want to thank committee and, of course, the BIAs. In particular, obviously, International Village BIA with our executive directors and our chair and the board. Effective tonight, the commercial real estate ad will be reading a great deal in a hot downtown district in need of some TLC. Call Bill Farkas at 905-546-2424. The sandbar is officially up for sale, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. So on item 4? Carried. Item number 5? Carried. Item number 6? Carried. Item number 7? Carried. Item number 8? Carried. Item number 9? Carried. Item number 10? Carried. Number 11? Carried. Item 12? Carried. Item 13? Carried. Item 14? Flip the pages here. Item 15? 16? Item 17? Item 18? Item 18? Councillor Farr.
And again, big thanks to staff and especially the Ontario Women's Hockey Association. They're actually waiting at this very second on ratification of this item. This is the Ontario Women's Hockey Association bid along with the City of Hamilton for the 2016 Women's World Hockey Championships, obviously with a spotlight on Fortino here at home. They're going to, upon ratification this very second, meet the deadline by minutes. So thanks to tourism staff, culture, Jack Brown, and all the rec people too, who I failed to mention in GIC, our facilities folks, and Global Spectrum as well, who are doing quite well these days in downtown Hamilton for all of the city and the region in Ontario, making available the First Ontario Centre in honor of Victor K. Copps for this very prestigious annual event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Item 18? Item number 19? Item 20? On item 20, Councillor McCaddy.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And just sort of taking advantage of this being on the agenda here, the Hamilton Environmental Summit 2013. And I just wanted to remind folks, I think this was actually Councillor Johnson's idea to reestablish an environmental summit here in Hamilton, offering groups the opportunity to get together with the city once a year or more to develop an agenda for all the issues we need to deal with, environmental issues across the city. And I wonder if I could just ask through you to Chris Murray, just maybe 2 words, Chris, on this. You were at the summit, had the opportunity to speak, and maybe just how that went. Was it yesterday or the day before?
Mr. Murray, please.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, yes, it occurred yesterday. It was the 44th year of Earth Day, and the event was oversold. In fact, we had more people invited this year than we did last year, and we still had more wanting to come. So it's an opportunity for leaders in this community to raise issues, to see that Hamilton is City Hall is taking them seriously, which of course we do. And this year, what was a little different was we're kicking off the beginning of our visioning exercise. So we, in the afternoon, had a chance to listen to these leaders to give us some ideas as to, the revamping of Vision 2020 and where we're going as a community. So, people that have been longtime leaders in this community and new leaders that are emerging attend this event. It is very well represented by a whole bunch of groups, and so staff obviously enjoy it, and Heather Donaldson and her gang, I think, did a great job.
Well, thanks very much, Chris, and particularly exciting to hear that we're revisiting Vision 2020. We're getting closer to the year 2020, so we need to update that and look at what the future of Hamilton looks like from a sustainability vision perspective. But thanks to Councillor Johnson for her, I remember the original motion coming forward to support this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McCaddy. On item 20? Item 21? Item 22? Item 22, Councillor Clark, you have an amendment for item 20. Oh, that was carried. So we're on to 23. Okay. Councillor Clark, you have an amendment for item 23.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, the councillors now have in front of them a confidential document. It's the white one that was just handed to you. If councillors have any concerns about what's recommended on this document, we can go in camera to discuss it. It's the settlement of an expropriation recommended by staff and brought before us. If we're okay, then we will proceed with the motion. I just looked to my colleagues.
So on item 23? Carried. Item 24? Mayor Bertina, may I have a motion on the report as amended?
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Judy Partridge that the 9th report of the General Issues Committee be adopted as amended in the information section received.
All in favor? Councillor Whitehead, would you please introduce your motion to waive the 48-hour rule? This is for Public Works.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councillor DeVal that the pursuant to the subsection 562 of the city's procedural bylaw, the 48-hour rule be waived in order to allow the consideration of Public Works Committee Report 14005, April 22nd, 2014.
All in favor? The Public Works Committee presents report 14-005 and respectively recommends item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5. Councillor Whitehead, may I please have a motion on this report?
And second by Councillor DeVal that the fifth report of the Public Works Committee be adopted and the information section received.
All in favor? Thank you. Mayor Bertina, would you please introduce your motion to waive the 48-hour rule?
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Partridge, that pursuant to subsection 562 of the city's procedural bylaw, 10-053, 48-hour rule be waived in order to allow for the consideration of Board of Health report number 14-003.
All in favor?
Carried.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The Board of Health presents report number 14-003 and respectfully recommends item number 1.
Okay.
Councillor Ferguson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I first of all want to thank the Board of Health and hopefully Council now for unanimously supporting this. It's been a year in development, and I don't think yesterday I'd give enough recognition to two people from the Health Department. That was Dr. Tram and Brent Browett. I think they did an exceptional job in helping me lead this through. They never put roadblocks up. They just said, here's the issues, but we'll get it solved. And so I just want to publicly thank those two individuals, in addition to everyone else that I thanked the Board of Health yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Let me start off by thanking Councillor Ferguson for this particular item and bringing it forward. I think it showed a great deal of leadership in doing so. And I can recall when it first came forward, I was kind of somewhat disillusioned that I didn't think of it myself, because I think it's such a great idea. Having said that, I think some questions were asked, legitimately, I guess, surrounding risk and liability. The issue, though, at hand, I think was clearly addressed in that because it's a pilot project, and when you show leadership, there are going to be some questions, but clearly everybody, from a legal perspective, has answered those questions quite clearly, in that this is in the best interest of all stakeholders with very minimal risk or liability. And as a direct result, I strongly support it and thank Councillor Ferguson publicly for his leadership on this particular item.
Thank you, Councillor Marula. Councillor Farr.
Congratulate the good work of the Rotarians, right? And Councillor Ferguson, who've been on this file. It's groundbreaking. Certainly, it's nice to be part of a council this term that's at the forefront of some initiatives across this country, and looked at with great respect across this country when we come up with such projects like this. There are still some concerns. I had an email today from a resident who has concerns that security guards are injecting citizens with needles. My only concern with that concern is that there are still perhaps some who aren't completely clear. I was sold in the committee about 6 months ago when Councillor Ferguson actually injected himself, and it's not a needle, it's an auto injector, I believe it's called, and that was proof enough for me that this was safe and effective. Nothing really happened, I don't think, to Councillor Ferguson. I think he did it several times. He tested it that day, and so I have every faith that those who will be involved in this project at our malls will be delivering it if they need to in a safe and effective manner. And I'll certainly respond to this resident with the full report, and hopefully we will communicate clearly to the public that what we're doing here is innovative and important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you. Just for my friend in Ward 3, good ideas can come from Ancaster. So again, I want to thank Councillor Fergus for his leadership. The issue was really, I guess, exaggerated, not exaggerated. It certainly came to light when I was watching the news. It was national news, and talking about the fact that Hamilton was looking at this and, in fact, leading the way, dealing with the EpiPen issue. You know, we have defibrillators that we show a lot of leadership in putting in many of our rec centers, and, you know, you're taking electrodes and regenerating somebody's heart to get them reestablished after having a heart attack. In fact, I would suggest that if there's any concern or risk, you might want to think there's more risk with that than with an EpiPen. So that's why I feel real at ease, quite frankly, with this pilot program. I think the liability and risk is very limited, and the overall comfort and success, you save one life. You save one life, it was worth it. And I think the City of Hamilton entering into this pilot program, McMaster University, Public Health Department supporting this initiative is an indication that we're on the right path. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. Excellent idea, and lots of excellent ideas come from Ancaster. It's important for the residents, and we have had a few calls, not a significant number, but as Councillor Farr has indicated, there's been a couple of calls come in about security cards sticking people with needles, and that's probably a real layman's term in terms of exactly what is happening. It is an auto-injector, but we and our legal staff, we went through this at Public Health, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We made sure that the legislation is there to protect the security guards, so there's indemnification of any liability. The pen, the EpiPen, if you want to call it that by a brand name, is well established in terms of its efficacy, its effect, and it's safe to operate. Teachers use them in the classrooms when kids get into trouble in the classrooms. So with the right training, there really is minimal risk to the municipality and minimal risk to the businesses and the security guards. So, I think it's an admirable program, an excellent pilot, and as we've indicated to those who have raised concerns, we have covered off all the bases from one end to the other. So it took a little while to get there, but congratulations to Councillor Ferguson and thanks to the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Ferguson.
I'd just like to set the record straight on that EpiPen. And I also got some criticisms when I demonstrated it last October, and I used it in my arm. And the criticism I got is it tells you to use it in your thigh. And my explanation was I couldn't get my big backside up against the microphone, so I used my arm. But it is incredibly simple. You just pull the cap off. It says place against thigh, press button, counts from 5 to 0, and it's done. And Anaphylaxis Canada and McMaster University will be doing the training of these guards to make sure they're well understand what their responsibilities are. So I just want to put that part at rest if that's concerns that some members of council are getting.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Duvall, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and I certainly support it, and I thank Councillor Ferguson for bringing this to light, and I certainly think it's a great pilot program. Some of my residents wanted to know why Lime Ridge Mall was not included. And I asked that question at the Board of Health, and I understand that at a particular time when they were asked, they declined the invitation to participate, but there's ongoing talks at this time, and they still haven't made a definite decision yet. So talks are still going on, but right now they won't be included.
Thank you, Councillor Duvall. Councillor Pearson.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you. And I just wanted to touch on to Councillor Duvall's comments because I mentioned it at the meeting the other day. I'm hopefully that this will encourage more and more restaurants and public facilities to get on board to have this EpiPen available. As we all know, and it has been stated around this table, but in presentations we've received, we all know this isn't more or less put in place to assist the residents that know they have an anaphylactic allergy. This is for the residents that don't know. And that's what happened to the young lady a few years ago, as Councillor Ferguson raised at the meeting. So it's for the residents that don't know they could be walking in danger. And I would encourage that our businesses, as they see, as was mentioned by the previous councillor, Eastgate Square and Jackson Square will be participating. And we hope that the momentum of this and the positiveness of it will blossom throughout the whole city. And we certainly are setting the stage for the rest of Ontario, if not Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. No further speakers. Item 1? Item 2? Item number 3? Item number 4? Number 4, Councillor Collins, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to thank the committee for their support with item number 4, which is reintroducing air monitoring station. It's in Hamilton's East End, and as I explained very briefly at the committee, almost 20 years ago we lost our provincial air monitoring station that was paid for by the provincial government. And since that time, there's been a real void in the East End, understanding that we have some major transportation corridors as well as heavy industry that exist literally right upside residential neighborhoods. And so I want to thank Public Health for first introducing the pilot program that we reintroduced at St. Manson Park. As you know, we funded an air monitoring station on Nash Road North for a period of 1 year. Those results will be in front of us fairly soon, and so far, as I understand it, they're very positive results. But as you know, and everyone around this table knows, it's almost every 6 months to 12 months we receive an application in the industrial north end of the city that raises the interest and the environmental consciousness of our local residents. A Sherman incinerator that's currently in the news is a good example of what we're currently facing, and the questions that we field from residents, whether they be in Councillor Morrow's ward or any of the lower city wards, regardless of where some of these facilities are located, depending on which way the wind's blowing, the air quality can affect all parts of this community. And so there is a very extensive list in terms of those issues that have come up in the past, especially in the East End when you go through the clean soils debate, Bitumar, Sherman Incinerator, as I referenced, Liberty Energy comes to mind, and of course our own biosolids plant, the project we're working on right now in Councillor Marula's ward. Again, lots of questions from community. And these air monitoring stations will provide us a good opportunity to monitor the air before and after some of these investments, if you want to call it that. And we'll be able to inform the community in a real-time setting online, as we have with our Hamilton Air Monitoring Network currently. We'll be able to provide them information from these 2 air monitoring stations that we're going to provide, and they're mobile. That's, I think, the biggest benefit that we get through this here. We'll be able to move them around, not just within Ward 5, but between the lower city, and if there are projects that exist in the suburban areas or beyond, they can be moved, obviously, to those locations as well. So I want to thank our public health staff, not just for the pilot project, but for helping me with this initiative here. Matt Lawson, Mike Bush, Rob Hall, all, of course, under the guidance and leadership of Dr. Liz Richardson. They've been tremendous in their assistance, and of course, the ongoing support that this council has shown, not just East Hamilton residents, but the lower city residents, as we've dealt with some very contentious environmental issues in the lower city over the years, certainly not just with the lower city's leadership and formerly with Councillor Morelli as well, but we've had some great challenges, and this investment will help us go a long way to address some of those that we've dealt with in the past, but those that we know are coming in the future as well.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I want to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Collins for the initiative. The interesting thing about this component and my strong support for it might in many ways conflict with my strong feeling about downloading and the fact that 55% of our budget is reflective of provincial responsibilities, not that of the city. Having said that, we have very significant successes in the past of taking leadership roles when it really matters. Home care comes to mind when we did voluntarily, for a period of time, absorb that particular program, and we did so on condition that we would continue to fight the province to upload what deservingly belongs at the provincial level. With respect to this issue, I look at it no differently. The jurisdiction falls within the provincial government and not within cities. We did, however, recently, with the support of this board, Councillor McCaddy and I brought forward the initiative about air quality initiatives and trying to incorporate it into the Board of Health mandate. And we've been working diligently in attempting to do that in correlation with public health. In doing that, what we need to do is, with this initiative, is understand that we are monitoring it, but sustainability comes to mind. So ultimately, at the end of the pilot project, throughout that period of time, what we should be doing simultaneously is putting pressure on the province to basically do their job, because we cannot continue or afford to take on their responsibilities. But in the meantime, we also can't afford to ignore these types of initiatives. And the mobility of this particular air monitoring station, coupled with the fact that we do have an opportunity to lobby the province to basically do their job, I'm prepared to support this accordingly and in a strong fashion. So I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Councilor Marula. Any further speakers on this item? So item 4? Carry. Item number 5? Carry. Item number 6? Mayor Bertina, may I please have a motion on the report?
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Partridge, that the third report of the Board of Health be adopted and the information section received.
All in favor?
Carried.
Councillor Partridge, may I have a motion, please, to rise and report?
Yes, you may, sir, and it is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Robert Pasuta that the Committee of the Whole rise and report. Thank you.
All in favor? We get to motions now, and beginning with Councillor Pasuta once again, you have a motion on special occasion permit.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bettina, and it's moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Sam Marula. It's a special occasion permit for the Punisher Adventure Race. I don't need to read all of it.
No, we don't need to read it. Everyone good? All in favor? Carried. Councillor Morrow, your motion. Special occasion permit, 7 Sundays. Need your mic.
As has been distributed, seconded by Councillor Marula, 7 Sundays.
All in favor?
Carried.
Special occasion permit saving second base, Councillor Duvall.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Whitehead for a special occasion permit for saving second base, July 19th and 20th. And Mr. Mayor, just want to let you know that all proceeds of this will go to the breast cancer.
To the what?
Breast cancer.
Oh, thank you. All in favor?
Carried.
Councillor Whitehead on revenue generation and cost reduction opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I've been working with the City Manager's Office, and I'm proud to announce that Councillor Duvall is co-sponsoring this resolution. The resolution is revenue generation and cost reduction opportunities, whereas one of the city's strategic objectives is to enhance overall sustainability, whereas Council has directed staff to explore non-residential tax revenues, whereas the City of Hamilton has recently realigned resources to support revenue generation, whereas the City of Hamilton has a number of existing revenue streams that may have incremental revenue opportunities, whereas the City of Hamilton has many assets including, but not limited to, arenas, auditoriums, outdoor structures that may lend themselves to new advertising revenues, whereas the City of Hamilton has many assets in the form of city-run events that may lend themselves to sponsorship opportunities, whereas the City of Hamilton owns property that may be repurposed in such a way that additional tax dollars could be generated, and whereas the City of Hamilton may produce products or services that may have revenue potential, therefore be resolved that staff be directed to prepare a report for the General Issues Committee in September 2014, which explores all potential revenue generation and cost reduction opportunities, including the scope of opportunities and increased revenue potential that may be realized in 2015 and 2016 budget years.
All in favor? Councillor Marula, would you like to introduce your motion?
7.5, I believe, is next, sir.
7.5? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Whitehead. Amending motion. Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, second by Councillor Duvall, that the item 7.3, respecting the consideration of an overpass display bylaw of the November 27, 2013 council minutes be amended by deleting the word planning and replacing it with the words public works after the words report to read as follows. Consideration of overpass display bylaw. The municipal bylaw enforcement staff, in consultation with legal services and public works staff, be directed to report to Public Works Committee on the regulating bylaw the use of overpasses for displays of any kind.
All in favor? And on the post-employment cooling off period, Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Collins. Whereas many senior levels of government have adopted policies imposing post-employment cooling-off periods on senior staff to ensure the integrity of process and decision-making of the government body, and whereas there may be benefits to having such a policy at the City of Hamilton, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to explore the feasibility of instituting a cooling-off period as part of the City of Hamilton's corporate policies and or employment agreements that would limit the ability of a former senior level staff from working for organizations in dealings with the City of Hamilton involving matters with which the former staff member had significant dealings during the last year of service with the city, and report to Audit, Finance and Administration Committee. And if I could just have a brief moment, I'd like to start off by firstly stating clearly that in no way am I suggesting that there's been any type of nefarious activity along these lines. But one thing I do want to emphasize is that, perceptually speaking, from a public's perspective, it's important that we have a policy along these lines, not too dissimilar to what they have at the federal and provincial levels, just to basically have a check and balance in place to deal with more perceptual problems than I believe to be reality. And in saying that, it also protects not only former employees, but also the private sector in dealing with potentially recruiting public sector employees. So I think it basically provides an environment that's conducive to openness, transparency, and more importantly, a protection for all stakeholders to ensure that the integrity of the process prevails, not only from a perceptual standpoint, but by extension in reality. And for that reason, I've brought this forward. I know that there's been some talk or suggestion that it's not legally binding, but I know from my own personal experiences in speaking with those that have worked at Queen's Park and or the federal government, that contract is somewhat binding, not only in the public sector, but also in the private sector. More recently, even within a family member who's a dentist and had this particular contract signed, and when he did relocate upon leaving the dentistry practice, he was held legally responsible and could not be active within a certain parameter of his office. It was litigated and successfully. Hence, there is precedent in the books about these types of agreements. Hence, I feel that it is merited even from a legal perspective for those that have questioned that particular component. I thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Clark and Councillor Wade.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be happy to support the recommendation. It's really asking staff to look at the feasibility of what is off period. The report comes back and looks at enforcement of such agreements, which I would expect that it would, and I would expect that it would look at perhaps code of conduct amendments that may be a means to dealing with it without getting into an only enforcement, which is litigation, which I'm not sure we want to be former employees or officials. But if all of that comes back in that report, and then we can have a fulsome debate on it. Right now, I don't think we can have a real clear debate until we actually get some thoughts back from our legal staff. Thank you.
Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I certainly support the principles what's being achieved. And I think we do need to do our due diligence and feasibility and enforcement. There is a law case I know that is fairly recent. Was again similar avenue where it was limiting the individual cooling off period in the same industry within a geographic area, and it went to the courts. And in fact, civil liberties, the ability to move and speak and obtain overruled the contractual obligation that was signed when he took the job. So I guess my concern is there might be two schools of thought if you bring this all the way up to the Supreme Court on whether or not one's individual freedom in regards to utilizing their skill sets outside of their former employee relationship is breaching his constitutional right. And so I think there's and I know this case is recent, and I'll bring the case to our solicitor's attention. I became very aware of it. And so I think it is interesting to determine whether we even have the ability to enforce it.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson, Ferguson, anybody else? Go ahead. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. And I totally respect the intent of this motion, where it's to ensure the integrity and processes and decision-making of the government body. Just wanted to ask the mover, why wasn't elected officials put in this as well? We're the ones that ultimately make the decision. So why couldn't we put those in as well?
To the mover?
I have no problem doing that. Clearly, though, what we have...
I want to write a book.
Clearly what we have, and I was asked this question when I brought forward the notice of motion publicly, and clearly what we have is a situation where most bureaucrats are nameless and faceless. So what, in essence, we as public officials are very, very publicly known, and anything that we do is very scrutinized. So the element of that nameless and faceless component is what really leads to some sort of perceptual concern. The fact that any one of us are going to be recognized is an issue that I think naturally within our capacity, but I have no problem having staff or incorporating it in the motion. But by the sheer nature of the publicity of our position, it basically it's open and transparent accordingly.
Thank you for that answer. So you don't mind the amendment, and I'll move the amendment with my colleague, Councillor Clark, is seconding it, that we add the elected
Actually,
officials.
I consider it a friendly.
Okay, thank
friendly,
you.
yeah, put it in. Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have to confess, I was uneasy with this when I read it. Although it's asking for staff reports, I'm prepared to do that. Councillor Muller is absolutely right. They have it in the private sector. It's called a non-compete clause. But generally, the way they get around that, they retain that person to be a consultant over the period. So their team generally goes with signing a non-compete. And I would hope sometimes, I know we've done it here in the city, we hire back retired people to do special projects for us. I hope it won't prohibit them from doing that, or from us from hiring them to do that. But people have the right to go out and enhance their lifestyle and make a living. But I'm looking forward to just see what does come back from our legal department, see whether we can legally do this.
Okay, did I miss anyone? So, all in favor? Thank you. Councillor Farr on objection to liquor license application.
Right. That's exactly what it is. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McCaddy.
All in favor? Carried. Proposed official plan, Councillor Partridge. I understand you have a motion to lift.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have a motion to lift the item, seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson. And I can speak to it if you want me to.
Go ahead,
Just
please.
to give some explanation. Yes, thank you. And the reason we are lifting this item to do with the Fernbrook Resorts and the trailer park in Flamborough on the 12th Concession East was originally approved at the Planning Committee back in March. And then when it came to the council meeting in March, I asked to have it tabled as I was approached by some residents who are on neighboring properties who wished to have a meeting. So I had it tabled so that we could have that public meeting. And we have had several meetings over the last couple of weeks with planning staff, with legal staff. This has been well vetted. And I'm very, very pleased that I'm able to bring this to the table this evening to be ratified and to be passed. And we were able to work out all the resolutions. And I did send an email earlier today just to give everybody the heads up on what the changes are. Legal does feel that the changes are minor, but I do need to lift the item. So that is the first motion.
So motion to lift, seconded by?
Seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson.
All in favor?
Carried. Thank you. And then the second part of that is the amendment to the bylaw and to the main motion, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brenda Johnson. Carried. Thank you. And then the third piece is is the motion itself as amended with the bylaw amended, and that is moved by myself and seconded by Brenda Johnson. And if I could just speak very, very briefly, I've done the explanation. I do want to thank the residents of the 11th concession who did approach and ask to have this tabled. We had good discussion. And I think, you know, this is the way that we as councillors want to see things happen, that we do engage our residents, even if it's after the fact that it's approved at planning. It hadn't been approved and ratified at council. There was still opportunity. I felt as the councillor for the area that it was very important to let the abutting residents who were new to the area. So this file has been in the works for 8 years. And the residents, it was a complete shock and a surprise to them. And I wanted to give them opportunity. We did that. We had good dialogue. We actually, I think, strengthened and improved the bylaw for the residents throughout the entire area, including the residents who will be living in the park. So I just wanted to thank Fernbrook for also being quite amenable in our discussions, and I'll thank the residents and particularly our legal staff, Leah, and also Steve Robichaud in planning. Both of them just exemplary leadership as we worked through all the issues. And it's moved by myself, seconded by Brenda Johnson, and I hope you'll all support it. Thank you.
No comments. All in favor?
Carried.
None opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Morrow that the following notice of motion submitted to Council on April 9th, 2014, respecting assessment of all City of Hamilton's external legal fees, which reads as follows: the staff be directed to seek an assessment of all of the City of Hamilton's external legal fees over the last 12 months from a provincial assessment office, be withdrawn and replaced with the following in lieu thereof: that A, that the city solicitor provide a review of external legal fees incurred over the past couple of years and report back on what options exist for an independent third-party audit of the city's past legal fees, and B, that on an ongoing forward basis, staff evaluate the use of RFPs or RFQs to tie external legal fees to budgets and outcomes, including appropriate cost control mechanisms and consequences to avoid cost overruns. And if I could just elaborate on this, in my time of being on council and working with other levels of government, one thing that I've always seen and wondered is why is it that when a public sector seeks out to hire or retain a lawyer, it seems as if it's far more protracted and a lot more costly when you compare it to what the private sector as an individual would be paying. So I think that as a result of this, and in working with Janice Atwood-Petrowski on this, she's been very helpful and thorough in ensuring that the parameters of this are inclusive, and she's supportive of it on a going forward basis, in the sense of trying to create a criteria and parameters to protect us from potential overbilling. So the RFP and RFQ process, for me, we have a procurement process that we work with for contractors, whether we're building sidewalks or roads. I see no reason why, if we have a case, why we can't present it accordingly, put it out to an RFQ or RFP, and allow them to bid for the work, but also put caps on that. Because at present, what they do is, we've all seen it, hypothetically speaking, they'll say, you have 90% the chance of winning. And then, as time goes by, we'll say, oh no, it's 60%. And they keep billing and keep asking for money, and then that 60 becomes 50, and then 50 becomes 30, and suddenly they got you, right? They got you quite nicely. And at that point, there's no point of return. The shared risk is necessary in all this. And there is a shared risk. Look at the stadium as an example. When we construct the stadium, we go out there for an RFP. There are penalty clauses built in. If they're not built by a certain date, then it's going to cost you X amount of money. Well, I see no reason, and this will also help us at the front end, because when we go out to the RFP, RFQ process, we say to them, this is our case. Right now, the way it's done, they always tell us we're going to win, because they're going to get the job. But if they look at this case and say, we're capping it, we want your input, but we're not giving you more money than what we're offering within these parameters, they're going to probably give us better advice. And that 90% suddenly might become 50 or 60 or even 40 or even better, because we're sharing the risk with the private sector. They might just simply say, you know what, guys or girls, not a good route to take. Let's step back and ensure that this is not in your best interest. That's the kind of advice, because I've never to this date, honestly, heard a lawyer come in that says to us, you don't have a chance of winning. I don't know. Is it me but isn't that a little odd? But at the end of the day, I think if we create these caps, we'll hear more of that rather than less. And because of that, we'll save the taxpayers money. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, the guy on TV says if you don't get any money, we don't pay. Get that guy. Councillor Clark.
Still grasping 1-800 call Sam. A quick suggestion that we clarify the actual number of years. We say a couple of years. At some point, there's going to be dispute coming back saying, well, what's a couple? So we're dealing with lawyers. Let's do it like a lawyer would do it and identify exactly what time frame. That would be my suggestion. I'm assuming that at some point there would have to be a scope of review in terms of how you're going to review or audit the past city legal fees, because we're the city has, my understanding, has been hiring solicitors based on specialties as opposed to based on hourly fees. So if you're dealing with constitutional law, you hire a constitutional lawyer and they're charging substantially more than a real estate lawyer and substantially more than a planning lawyer, but the planning lawyer is slightly more than the real estate lawyer, and on and on and on it goes. So there's going to need to be some, I would assume, scope of review or terms of reference in terms of how the audit would take place, because I in my mind, I'm not clear exactly what the audit would be auditing other than we have the bills. The other issue you're going to have to deal with is the proprietary issues with regards to the contracts for the lawyers, and I leave that to the lawyers that we've hired on our own staff. But if we have contracted a lawyer and they dealt with a specific file, generally everything within the file is solicitor-client privilege to the municipality except for the fee. So I'm not sure exactly what you audit if all we can audit is the fee and not the work that was done within the file. So again, that needs to come back. With regards to the RFPs and RFQs, it would be interesting to see if any municipalities across the country are currently doing that. I can tell you from my experience, I've seen lawyers come in and tell you, you're not going to win, so don't even try it. And I've heard that advice behind closed doors. So others will come in and tell you that, as Councilor Murillo said, it's a resounding bat out of the park. And then as time goes on, it becomes a bunt. And if you're lucky, it's not a strikeout. So we need to actually understand how the RFP, RFQ process would possibly work. Because my concern would be solicitors don't need to RFP and RFQ. They have lots of work. There's lots of municipalities. If no one else is doing it, you simply won't have the caliber of lawyers putting themselves forward to the municipality. And that becomes a problem. So I think all of those things need to be considered. I have no problem supporting the motion, given that those things would be back to us with a fulsome report. But I think we will need that legal report in terms of the proprietary issues, because I'm not sure how you're going to overcome that under third-party exemptions. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. I really support the principle, and I think that the only concern I would have is that we've heard on a number of occasions there's certain areas that are real specialty areas, and not a lot of lawyers practice in those particular areas or have the experience to carry such a significant file. I've heard that on a number of occasions when I raised this process in the past. But there are clearly files that are sort of standard files that doesn't need that same level of experience and so forth. So I would hope as we go through the feasibility that we can define. I don't want to just come back and say, well, we need specialty lawyers, so therefore we can't do it. I think there's different levels and different opportunities and different workloads that could be attributed to the RP process versus others that might be defined as specialty areas or areas where clearly we don't want to tie our hands and going to the lowest bidder versus our best opportunity to succeed. And I don't want to offset that through an RFP or RFQ process. But clearly, I think there is a role for the RFP process. I think we just need to define at what level we apply it and what level is exempted from that. And I would hope that we see it approached in that way.
Okay, no further speakers. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none. Notices. Councillor Pearson, you have a notice of motion.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to actually refer to the clerk if I could. This is a reconsideration of item 12C of the Planning Committee Report 14-004. It's respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter. This goes back, and the reasons here in this forum where we need a notice of motion, a request to reconsider, et cetera, is because we've already approved this on a previous council agenda. So in order to shorten the time that I don't have to read all of these recommendations, motions off, I'm going to ask the clerk to just give the overview. Cole's Nose version, I told her.
Mayor, I think Councillor Pearson did give the Coles Notes version, so just to repeat, the item is before you as a reconsideration because the Planning Committee wasn't aware at the time that it was dealing with a recommendation that had already been approved by Council on March the 26th. So the process to make the change from what Council had already approved is to have a reconsideration, and our reconsiderations are introduced as notices first, and then Councillor Pearson would like to waive that as well.
So, Mr. Mayor, I'll try and be very brief on this. The first one is item 8.1A. It's a notice of motion moved by myself. It's a reconsideration, as I said, of item 12C of the Planning Committee Report 14-004, respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter. I'll just put that on the floor.
Okay.
Notice of motion.
Notice,
and then
yes.
The next one is item 8.1B, which is that we waive the rules, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Brad Clark, that the rules of order be waived to allow for the introduction of a motion respecting the reconsideration of item 12C to Planning Committee Report 14-004, respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Clark.
Favor of waiving
Waiving the rules.
What is your point of order?
I think it is a point of order.
What is
what reconsideration, isn't there a rule in regards to who can actually raise it? If you voted in the affirmative, you can, and if you're in the negative, you can't. So I guess I need to check with clerk and determine whether this is being rightly put forward relative to those rules.
Mayor, through you, yes, that is correct. Anyone that voted in favor of the original recommendation can put forward a notice of reconsideration.
Okay. So all in favor? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next is item 8.1C, is a motion moved by myself, second by Councillor Brad Clark. Again, it's the reconsideration of item 12C of Planning Committee Report 14-004, respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter.
All in favor?
Lastly, item 8.1D, before you, moved by myself, second by Councillor Brad Clark. It's the amendment to item 12C of Planning Committee Report 14-004, respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter. In the body of it, the last is, Mr. Mayor, actually that item 12C, respecting 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton, be amended as follows. That the recommendations be amended by deleting the words quotes, the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee be authorized to, unquote, and replaced with the word, quote, council, to read as follows. That council write a letter to the Ministry of Tourism and Culture and Sport, as well as to the Ontario Heritage Trust, outlining concerns with limitations of the Ontario Heritage Act with respect to regulating alterations to non-designated properties that are included in the municipal register, as demonstrated by the extent of alterations to the existing house at 170 Longwood Road North. And for information, see Appendix C attached here too. That item, and sub 2, that item 3, 170 Longwood Road North, Hamilton letter be referred back to staff for report to Planning Committee.
Any further comment? Councillor, I have Councillor McCaddy.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And although I understand and support the general principle of what's happening here, I do want to make it clear that this address, I should say, first off, is in Ward 1. And I met with the owner of the property, and we reviewed the alterations that were being made. And I think they're very tastefully done. And I think it's really important that we do, when we can, support adaptive reuse of heritage buildings. And, you know, I've been very active in the past in wanting to conserve heritage buildings, and I'll continue to do that. But there are situations where an adaptive reuse is occurring, particularly in a house that has some structural issues with the original design, and it's necessary to make changes for the new family moving in. And I happen to think that this particular design is very respectful to the original design. So I just wanted to make that clear to folks at 170 Longwood Road North is something that we have discussed at the local level in Westdale, and it is a good design, but I understand the general intent of the motion here.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
Absolutely, and to be clear, there's no dispute in terms of the alterations that are being done. This is clearly with regards to process in terms of how the ministry. This is actually writing a letter talking about the overall process in general and demonstrating it with regards to one specific property. So it's not objecting to it, it's just using it as an example.
Right. Councillor Pearson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I concur with Councillor McHattie. There is actually no issue with regards to your discussions. I know the House very well. I drive by it many times. The issue was the process, and if I believe correctly, I think Councillor McHattie and I both sit on the Heritage Committee. We're not there at that meeting that day, so it wasn't caught, and unfortunately didn't catch it in reading the minutes before it came to the previous council meeting that it was ratified. All this is just clarifying as a process that Heritage Committee members don't send letters. It has to be a directive to council to send the letter. So that's all we're doing here, and then it'll be up to the Ministry and of Heritage and Tourism to do recommendations maybe going forward on properties that are on a designation list but are not designated as of yet.
So I'll call the vote on this. All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none. Councillor Partridge, you have a notice.
I do, Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Item 8.2A, it is a notice of motion to do with representation on the Halton-Hamilton Source Water Protection Committee, but I would like to waive the rules, and that would be moved by myself and seconded by Robert Pasuta. Councillor Robert Pasuta.
All in favor of waiving the rules?
Thank you, and you have in front of you 8.2C. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robert Pasuta, that municipal representation on the Halton-Hamilton Source Water Protection Committee, that in the absence of the Senior Project Manager, Source Protection Planning, that Bert Pozdowski, Manager, Sustainable Initiatives with Public Works Department, be appointed to the staff representative as the staff representative on the Halton-Hamilton Source Water Protection Committee. And if I may, I'm the council representative on that committee as well, so I look forward to working with Bert and encourage you all to support this. Thank you.
All right, and all in favor?
Carried.
Thank you. No more notices. Members of council, items of interest. Councillor Partridge, would you like to start?
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yes, just very quickly, coming this Saturday on the 26th at the Twin Pad Arena, we will have a plaque presentation. We're expecting a lot of people to be present. And it's to recognize the volunteers who worked so diligently over the last few years to really move forward to have the state-of-the-art North Wentworth Twin Pad Arena come to reality and be built. And we're expecting all of the hockey teams, the minors and the girls hockey and the skates to show up. And we look forward to recognizing the volunteers. On Tuesday the 29th is the school board meeting, which will be held here in the council chambers. And it's going to be with respect to the West Flamborough delegations for the ARC review. And I'll certainly be here to speak in favor of keeping Millgrove School open. And I know there are other councillors that may show up as well. And I encourage everyone in the community to please come out and support and speak on behalf of Millgrove Public School, that we must work hard to keep that school open. And on Thursday, May the 1st, I have a public meeting on Thursday evening with staff attending with regards to traffic calming in the downtown Waterdown core. On Saturday, May the 3rd, will be my community cleanup. Again, it'll be in Millgrove, and last year we had between 60 and 80 volunteers show up, and I'm looking forward to that again, and again with staff's help. That's a wonderful event. On Monday, May the 5th, at the Flamborough Centre School, the students will be doing a play called The Wizard of Oz, which is going to be on from the 5th to the 7th, and the following evening I'll be visiting the Girl Guides in Carlisle, and I always look forward to that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Pasuta, who is the Deputy Mayor, before you start, if you have something, thank you very much for sitting in, as the Deputy Mayor does, for the Mayor, especially with regard to the Fraunhofer announcement by Minister Hoskins that we'll be getting a $4 million provincial contribution to that relationship. And so I was away that week, and I really I understand you did a great job. So thank you very much for that. And what else do you have?
Thank you for that, Mayor Bertini. Appreciate that. And it was an exciting event, and the funding that's coming from the provincial government for that project. So, I got a few items here. So the Dundas Valley School of Art, they had their auction. Councillor Collins and yourself, Mayor, we did some projects. Councillor Collins and I worked together once. I don't know how many times he went. I went 3 times, about 9 hours into my little plate, which was Farm Life. And it was put up for silent auction for bids, and I think Chris Firth-Eglin has got it. It's in his office, so he'll be serving cheese on it. But I think he paid a lot for it. I hope he did. But I can understand from sitting there for 9 hours and trying to do this and hold his hand and do the art part of it, why art's so expensive. It takes so much time to do the job. But it was a learning experience, and I really enjoyed it. And Councillor Collins, I enjoyed my time with you there. The shared dinner that we had here back on April the 16th, which I talked about last time, I attended with my wife Elaine, supports agriculture and teaching agriculture in South America. It was a great job, a great event. Upcoming, I'm going to be with Councillor Pearson on Friday. She may talk about this with the ESO Awards breakfast. So Elaine and I will be there. Spring cleanup, we're going to be in Greensville and over at Antrim Glen and Frilton. We'll attend both there. The weather has been the longest winter, I think any farmer will tell you, the longest winter, of course everybody would tell you, the longest winter we can remember kind of forever. We didn't have the January break. Snow's still out there. We still got snow on one field on the north side, quite a bank there yet up our way. But we're getting on the land. Some farmers with late land are getting on the land. Things are going to be delayed a little bit. Your asparagus is going to be delayed, and we're going to get into the rhubarb be delayed. But hopefully we get some good weather. We had a beautiful day the other day. We need more of those. Today is Administrative Assistance Day, Wednesday, this day. The whole week is. If you forgot to do something today, you can catch up tomorrow and the next day, okay? So that's a message for everybody. I never forget that. So myself, I will be, when we get the weather, be on the farm. I haven't had a holiday since last April, holidays for ourselves. I'll try to sneak a few in getting some farm work done. I'm still connected to the community. I've got Bluetooth in the tractor. I can talk on the phone. I can do my emails when I stop at the corner, turn around, come back down planting. So I'm connected to the community. I'm connected to my residents in City Hall when I do that. Poor farmer. Poor farmer, yes. And Mr. Mayor, it has been a good time to represent the city's deputy mayor. My last time in this term of council, but it's enjoyable to stand at the front down here as we do council and.
You still have a week to go.
Keep. Sorry, you're going to lay it on me, are you? Not done yet. But it's. I really enjoy it. So thank you for the opportunity, everyone, and thanks.
That was a good high-level performance with the minister. Councillor Ferguson.
Yes. First of all, I don't have Bluetooth in my tractor when I go to visit Don Robertson.
But he's got a fax machine.
But just one thing, Mr. Mayor, as the chairman of the Police Services Board, I want to publicly announce that Ken Leaners, our deputy chief, has decided to retire next Wednesday, April 30th. It's important that we publicly recognize him for his outstanding service to the community. He started as a cadet 35 years ago, so he's put a full service in it. We're going to miss him dearly. We talked about some of his achievements over his career last night at the Police Services Board, but I think one that stands out the most is when he worked with our city manager, Chris Murray, in the dealing with the situation on the Red Hill Creek Parkway. Both of them had the types of personalities. I think it's the only occupation by an Aboriginal community that was resolved peacefully in the country. And Ken and Chris take credit for that. And that's one of Ken's best achievements. And he's been recognized by Six Nations and others for what he did. He doesn't have a confrontational style. He's all talk, and it's all about having a peaceful solution to things. So we're going to miss him dearly in this community, but we wish him well in his retirement.
Thank you for that. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, it's Ward 11, so it's going to be a few minutes. Sorry. First of all, I just want to thank everyone who organized and implemented all the Easter egg hunts in Ward 11. I had 4 of them, and if I add up all the numbers between the 2 in Mount Hope, the 1 in Binbrook, and 1 in Winona, we had over 3,000 smiley little faces at the end of it all. So thanks to all the volunteers and all their hard work and all the sponsors. For the next announcements, please go to my website, www.brendajohnson.ca for more details. So I'll just run them off Cole's notes. Binbrook Little Theatre is presenting The Perfect Wedding on Friday, May the 2nd from 5 to 8. Sinclairville United Church is having their sausages and sauerkraut dinner. And then the same night at 8 o'clock, 447 Wing in Mount Hope is having Ronnie and the Rockets. On the 3rd of May, we have Binbrook United Church is having their yard and bake sale. And it's going to be rain or shine. And that's from 8 to 1. And Saturday and Sunday, the 3rd and the 4th, we have the 24th Binbrook Annual Country Home and Garden Show, 10 to 4, with the Binbrook Classic Car Show and Swap Meet at the fairgrounds. On the 4th, we have the Bimber Conservation Authority is having their Crappie Derby, and that's from 6 a.m., yes, a.m., to 1 p.m. On May 8th, 9th, and 10th, the Stony Creek Historical Society is having their gigantic book sale at the former city of Stony Creek City Hall. On May the 9th, Glanbrook Home Support is having their roast beef dinner at the fairgrounds. And on the 9th, we have the Stony Creek Lions Fishing Derby, and it's going to be at the 50 Conservation Authority. On the 9th, we have the plant and book sale from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m., and that's at Christ Church in Woodburn. Winona 50 United Church is having their garage sale on the 9th as well. And on the 11th, Wesley United Church in Fruitland is having their Mother's Day Victoria Tea from 11:30 to 2 p.m. So we have lots happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Indeed, you have lots happening. Councillor Pearson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And a few items from Ward 10 and vicinity. So I'm going to start off with the Lions Annual Fishing Derby. It's at 50 Point, Saturday, May the 10th, from 6:30 a.m. There's a registration. And child's fee is $5, adults are $10. All the proceeds go to Camp Trillium. So if you want more information with regards to the event, the prizes, the donations, or cash contributions, please contact Lion Allison, and that would be lennox1961@hotmail.com or 905-664-2208. I will also mention I did have a gentleman in Ward 10 who did an Easter egg hunt, has done it for at least 3 years now. This was the first year that he had to scramble at the last minute because unfortunately he was not supplied with eggs. There was a change in the rules and process, and that's fine. He did an excellent job. So my thanks goes out to Julius Poxai, who did the Eastdale Easter egg hunt at Eastdale School. So there, for the residents and kids that came out, it was great weather, and it was fun and it was fast. But I want to also thank all of the contributions that the parents made towards next year's event, because that will start him off on the right foot for next year and gives him some confidence that he's doing a great job, and I want to thank him for that. I know Councillor Johnson mentioned book lovers. So there is a book lovers. Mark your calendars for Thursday, May the 8th, 10 to 8, Friday, May 9th, 10 to 5, and Saturday, May 10th, 10 to 3. That's the Stony Creek Historical Board is having a gigantic book sale of used books to be held at the Stony Creek Municipal Office, 777 Highway number 8 at Jones Road. If you have books that you're interested in donating, they would be gratefully received on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m. at the Stony Creek Historical Board Library Archives that are at the 605 Highway number 8, former Alliance Church. It's a city property. And they also mentioned, please, no encyclopedias. Lastly, Mr. Deputy Mayor, you can see I'm wearing with pride my SO Cup jacket. I'm thrilled to say that we have the SO Cup going on in Stony Creek. It's the Girls SO Cup. And with the Stony Creek Girls Hockey Sabres hosting the event this year, they are one of the 6 teams participating. So right now we have BC Fraser Valley Phantoms that are participating, the Edmonton Thunder, Saskatchewan Weyburn Goldwings, and Sudbury Lady Wolves, and the Moncton, New Brunswick Rockets. My husband and I have attended several games. I was honored to do a puck drop on Sunday, and I'll tell you, with the new facility at Gateway Ice in Stony Creek, which has 1 major arena and 2 smaller arenas, I've had nothing but compliments. This is a totally private facility. I've had nothing but compliments. The teams have been, if anybody wants to enjoy, and I know with Mr. Robertson being here today with hockey, if you want to watch some really great hockey, watching these girls, they're about 16, 18-year-olds. They are excellent. And just for everyone's information, Brianne Jenner and Lori Fortino, who were on the Girls Olympic hockey this past February in Sochi, were members of this hockey league at Sabres in Stony Creek. So Lori will be at the breakfast on Friday morning bringing a few words of wisdom. So really thrilled with that. One little thing I wanted to add, and I was going to mention about the position that the girls are in right now for Stony Creek, but I thought I'm not going to jinx them, because we all know what it's like around this table when we think we say something and it doesn't happen. So I'm not going to do that. But it was interesting last night. My husband and I were at the game, and it was very close. I think it was 3 to 2. But we were sitting there, and these were a lot of Sudbury families. So we were talking with a number of the residents, because we have friends that live up Sudbury, Wary, North Bay, Sturgeon Falls. And one of the gentlemen, as we were talking, said, well, who are your girls out there on the ice? And my husband said, well, they're all our girls. We're supporting all of them out there, so he's quite surprised. And my husband has really taken a shining and a liking to watching these girls play because they are superb. I hope that if everybody has an opportunity to come out, that you get a chance. Also, before I forget, the final game on Saturday is being televised Canada-wide on TSN starting at 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Councillor Pearson. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and anyone has driven by Councillor Pursuita's farm. He has the straightest rows of anybody in that entire agriculture community. I actually was surprised quite clearly how straight they were until he told me that he has GPS in his tractor, Bluetooth, fax, internet, TV, and satellite. So he's quite comfortable carving up the plows because he just sets it on automatic pilot. Oops, sorry, a secret. To the folks in Upper and Lower Stony Creek, we're extending our gratitude to Councillor Marula, who assisted us finally getting our farmers market in our community. We've been trying for, I was corrected actually, Council, it was 3 years, not 2.5. It was a long process trying to get a farmers market in the community. Councillor Marula and the Ottawa BIA came up with a pilot program. We used the New Walter Reserve royalties to fund the project. So we will actually have a farmers market in Upper and Lower Stony Creek in 2015, and we're just working on the details in terms of the locations. We may have some issues with wine being in one of them because it's a church parking lot, and I'm not sure they're going to want wine being served in it, so I'm sure we can prevent that from happening to make sure that it's in the center part of the community. I also want to mention the passing of a friend of mine who I met through my time at Queen's Park, Herb Gray. He was the Deputy Prime Minister. He was quite a remarkable gentleman. I met him while serving as Minister of Transportation. We were working with the Secretary of Transportation of the U.S. and Minister Collinette on a tri-party agreement, and we were able, and it was, you think, trying to get the province to the table on LRT's file, try negotiating with the feds, the American government and the Ontario government to merge the environmental assessment acts of those three governments into one policy so that they could deal with the bridge and the tunnel. Minister Gray was the epitome of honorable. He was truly respected internationally. He really did live up to service for the people, and he was quite a gentleman. So I was privileged to know him, work on a number of files with him, and I extend my condolences to his family and his friends and the parliamentarians in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I'm going to come back to Councillor Whitehead. He was away for 2 weeks. We missed him, so I'm going to give him the privilege of speaking now.
Deputy Mayor, I want to first thank, we had a number, unfortunately I couldn't attend because I was under the weather, but we had a number of Easter egg hunts in Ward 8. And I know that the new organization at Gilkson had a huge success, and I want to also thank Gorley, Randy Chappell. It's my understanding that not only did he get the eggs for Gorley Park and provided the opportunity there, but assisted and facilitated other geographic areas with Easter eggs. So my hat's off to Randy. It's just kind of individual. He and his wife and that whole organization are at Gorley. They're just an incredible organization. I also want to advise that I'll be hosting a neighborhood meeting tomorrow evening, Thursday, April 24th, from 7 to 9 p.m. at Mount View School at 59 Karen Crescent for residents of the Mount View neighborhood. I would also like to acknowledge the untiring efforts of our dedicated staff on this Administrative Assistant Day. And unfortunately, I forgot to get flowers. Mr. Chair, I also want to thank my colleagues in my absence. Each and every one of you took positions and supported issues that I couldn't speak to, and I want to thank you with all sincerity for supporting and assisting while I was away. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. Councillor Duvall.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and a couple announcements. One in Ward 7 on Carrara Park. It's been an old park, and it's going to be renewed. We're finally going to get a park sign. It hasn't been one in there since 1990. A lot of people didn't even know the park existed until it was brought to our attention. But with our area rating money, a whole bunch of swing sets will be put in and new playground equipment, and it's good news for the people in the Carrara area. So I thank Council for supporting it. And Monday, April the 28th, the Labour Council will be hosting the Day of Mourning here at Council Chambers at 5:30. It's their yearly event, and I know it's well represented by this council. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to the mayor, his staff, this council, and their administrators. It's been the passing of my sister, and along with a lot of staff departments, the kindness and overwhelming support that you showed was much appreciated by the DeVal and Myers family, and along with the clerk's office. My sister April, we suddenly lost her a week ago, and just thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Councillor Duvall, for those words. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, thank you, and just please indulge with me. I've got 8 community events that I need to acknowledge and mention that are upcoming, and thank the volunteers that have been involved with them. So I'll be the guy who will mention about tomorrow night's Women of Distinction Gala Dinner Award at Carmen's. I need to read off the committee that has put this fabulous event together. It'll be sold out again. A number of us will be there. The committee is composed of CEO Denise Doyle, of course, from the YW, her staff Alex Johnstone, Leslie Lamont, and Nuzma Qureshi, and volunteer committee members Angela Frazina, Donna Stevenson, Jane Gooding, Linda Greenway, Mia Laister-Peck, Pam Vermeersch, Rebecca West, and Yulina Wan. So I want to congratulate them. That's tomorrow night at Carmen's, the Women of Distinction Gala Awards Dinner. I think over 50 women are going to be honored. Secondly, the HSR Retirees Luncheon is Friday, April 25th, this Friday at 12:30 at our convention center. I want to thank Cindy McDonald and her organizing committee. Cindy is on staff, Mr. Deputy Mayor, with the HSR. And I want to say usually about 250 retirees attend this wonderful luncheon. And I want to say to Don Hall and his entire management team, I want to say that they're one of the few departments, to my knowledge, that goes out of its way to host this traditional luncheon to thank the retirees, drivers, maintenance workers, electricians of the past who have worked so hard for many years for the HSR and public transit. I want to congratulate Don Hall and his management team and Cindy McDonald for always putting on this HSR Retirees Luncheon. Mr. Deputy Mayor, on Sunday, 2 events this Sunday, a Great Escarpment Project cleanup by Greg Lenko and his army of volunteers. There's going to be over 300 of them helping to clean up areas like Albion Falls, Red Hill Trail, the East Mountain Rail Trail, the Devil's Punch Bowl. I've come to know Greg in the last couple of years in introduction from Councillor Sam Marula, a lifelong chum from many years, school years ago. And he has done a yeoman's job in helping to pick up so much debris, garbage, illegal dumping in these beautiful areas of our city. And I'm very proud that Albion Falls and the East Mountain Rail Trail is one of them. So please come out and join them this Sunday, April 27th at 11 a.m. at Albion Falls area. Also, Mr. Deputy Mayor, this Sunday is the 99th anniversary commemoration of the Armenian genocide and the first genocide of the 20th century. And Mr. Deputy Mayor, it'll be at the Armenian Community Center this Sunday at 2:30. A number of my colleagues have graciously told me they're going to be in attendance this year, which I appreciate. We all know the horrific tragedy that this was back during the First World War time. I encourage any and all to come out, learn about Armenian culture, learn about the 99th commemoration of the Armenian genocide this Sunday at the Armenian Community Center at 191 Barton Street East in Stony Creek. And I want to thank the committee made up of Aris and Hagop Apkarian, Paul Safarian, Harold Sarunian, and Natalie Manukian. Further, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Next Tuesday at Macassa Lodge, it's the Volunteer Appreciation Day. There'll be an open house and light luncheon Tuesday, April 29th from 2 to 4 p.m. at Macassa Lodge. And it's to thank our over 200 volunteers for all they do for the 270 frail elderly residents of Macassa Lodge. I want to thank, of course, the Senior Administrator, Vicki Woodcox, but her main staffer there, Jennifer Kruger, the Volunteers Coordinator, that she does a great job, along with the Volunteer Association President Ray Strawn, Vice President Louis Vecchione, and Treasurer Margaret Shane. Mr. Deputy Mayor, 3 more quickly. Paint the Town Red, 6th Annual Dinner, Gala Dinner, Thursday, May 1st at Michelangelo's, 6 p.m. All proceeds from this Paint the Town Red dinner go to the Dr. Bob Kemp Hospice on Stone Church Road East in Councillor Duval's area near Upper Wellington. If you haven't visited that area and that beautiful home for those that have been inflicted in the last stages of their lives with horrible illness, it's just a wonderful treasure place for families to have their loved ones and to bring them the comfort that they need in the last stages and years of their lives. Thanks to Jan Nichols and the committee for putting on that great event. 7th one, Mr. Deputy Mayor, Canadian Japanese Cultural Centre, a lot of great multicultural stuff going on. Sunday, May 4th, 2 p.m. at 45 Hempstead Drive in my area. A great cultural event at 2 p.m. Please come out. Thanks to Jeffrey Naganobu and his committee for putting on this Canadian Japanese Cultural Centre event on Sunday, May 4th at 2 p.m. It's called the Hamilton Karaoke, and I'm proud that that's in my Ward 6. And lastly, the South Asian Heritage Month 10th anniversary on Saturday, May 10th at Brebeuf High School in the auditorium at 6 p.m. Thanks to and kudos to Indu Singh, Jasmine Hack, and their entire committee. This is spreading and promoting and educating our community on all great cultures that make up the South Asian community in our city. 10th anniversary, Saturday, May 10th at Brebeuf High School. Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for allowing me all those announcements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Collins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And I want to announce the community cleanups that I am hosting in cooperation and consultation, certainly with Ward 5 neighborhood groups and residents. This weekend, April the 26th, from 9 until 12, the Davis Creek Planning Group will be hosting a community cleanup at several locations in the East End. It's primarily in the Greenhill and Quigley area road vicinity. We'll be hosting them at Greenhill Park, the former Bishop Ryan School parking lot, Congress Crescent City Housing area, as well as Beavers Park. Residents in that area are invited to attend, and of course, like all city events, sponsored events, there will be bags and gloves for all the volunteers. Saturday, May 3rd, I'll be hosting I think it's the 7th annual beach community cleanup at the Hamilton Beach Rescue Unit. From 9 until 12, there will be a barbecue there, and I want to thank the Hamilton Beach Rescue Unit, as I do every year, for hosting that event at their facility. And that same day, May the 3rd in the afternoon, I'll be hosting another community cleanup in the Rosedale community at the Rosedale Arena from 12 until 2:30. Again, that's Saturday, the May 3rd for that event. And last but not least, the Fred Lombardo Baccio Association will be holding their annual general meeting tomorrow evening, Thursday, April the 24th, from 7 until 8 at Sir Isaac Brock School. Anyone who's interested in playing with the group who lives in the vicinity of Greenhill and King Street is invited to attend.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillor Marula.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just one thing with respect to the Ward 4 community meeting, which will be held weeks from now on May 29th, but the newsletter and agenda will be distributed in the mail starting sometime next week, and included with that will be information related to dumping and littering and ways of combating it collectively in the community. And I look forward to the meeting on the 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marula. Councillor Morrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was some great events, cleanup particularly, and also events related to Easter egg rolls and hunts. And I've been having to fight off a bout of pneumonia the last couple of weeks, so I've missed quite a number of them, but I'll be attempting to make up for last time as that problem has receded. And I'm very delighted to see so much activity and so much energy in the ward. Yesterday at the committee, there were some kids talking about bike trails, and specifically the Gage Park area, but other possibilities may exist as well. And I know that Councilor Murillo was very helpful with that. So things like that are all part of spring, and I'm looking forward to getting some progress on a number of these areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Morrow. Councilor Farr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I'll be heading directly from this meeting to one of our many idea generation meetings. This one's at the Homegrown Hamilton Cafe. It's on till 9 tonight, so if you're catching the live bit from Joey, you can get there before 9 and offer your ideas on how you and your friends and neighbors in your community might utilize a portion of, or even all of, $1 million of your money. That's our PBW2 effort, well underway, and the idea generation meetings continue to happen. There'll be another one at Volunteer Hamilton from 9 until 11 this Saturday, then Wednesday at Bonetto Recreation Center from 7 to 9 p.m. Annual one-day rain barrel truckload sale. Brian has news on that in just a moment. Food trucks, though, for Haiti, I have that. That's from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. at the Ferguson Station. Live Haitian music and a Haitian arts and crafts marketplace. One-of-a-kind, first-time event at Ferguson Station in the heart of International Village, coming your way this Saturday. This Sunday, HMCS Athabascan's ceremony, the annual ceremony taking place is the HMCS Star. That's at 1:30 sharp, and it features a wreath-laying ceremony at the HMCS Haida. Looking forward to being part of that celebration this year, and honored to participate. The OBIA weekend is in Hamilton this coming weekend, and it starts this Friday throughout downtown, and I'm sure the city as well. Thank you to all of our local BIAs for pulling this together, our chairman of the former Havia, and the over 300 BIA representatives from all over Ontario who will be coming to this great city and be spending their money in our area for 3 full days. Congratulations to all of our neighborhood associations. A general announcement, Mr. Deputy Mayor. There's just too many events that they hold, Easter egg hunts most recently to mention, but from the egg hunts to the land trust meetings in Beasley, well-attended AGMs of late from the 6 neighborhood associations. Of course, no corner of Ward 2 is not covered by a neighborhood association, and it definitely is a busy spring and summer ahead, from community park picnics, movies in the park, cleanups, and one new event in Corktown, the Paws in the Park event, where we're going to hopefully see lots of dogs and what other animals may have paws being part of this first annual festival at Corktown Park. And finally, thanks to Danny's No Frills today for offering such a great deal on flowers that my AA received on this Administrative Professionals Day, not 1, but 2 bouquets, and she's well worth it. So thank you as always, Most Galley.
Thank you, Councillor Farr. Councillor McHattie, please.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And as Councillor Farr previewed, the annual one-day rain barrel truckload sale at Mohawk College is coming up, the Fennel campus, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday. And secondly, on Monday, the urban design study for the Barton Tiffany area of Hamilton. The public consultation, that's their second meeting of that group that runs from 6 to 9 p.m. at Leona Station, the King George Ballroom. That's the urban design study on Monday at 6 to 9 p.m. The 12th annual Doors Open Hamilton is running May 3rd and May 4th, Saturday and Sunday, 10 to 4 p.m. This year, there are 39 buildings in the community where the public can go and explore buildings that are usually, in many cases, off limits for folks. So it's a great opportunity to check out those buildings. And lastly, I just wanted to let our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Pasuta, know that Christopher Thegland spoke to me today about your piece of art that you worked on at the DVSA. He's very proud to own that piece of art. And I hesitate to mention the price that he paid for it. It was an extraordinary price. I'm sure it was worth every minute. And the 9 hours you put into it, I know he's going to be proud, and he'll be displaying that at the Conservation Authority proudly on his desk. Councillor Pasuta, good work. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Just a couple of things. Councillor Ferguson and I were at the ribbon cutting for 200,000+ square feet of innovative research space, and 200 employees going up to, we understand that Lloyd will go to 300, And the Hoffman family have properties all over the world, Burkina Faso, Greenland, Finland, South America, the States, but the global headquarters of this company that does really advanced and innovative research is headquartered in this new facility in the Ancaster Business Park. So, and I was so proud of that because I was mentioning, you know, the beauty of it is that we are getting the high-tech industry that every community wants. But we also have people welding railway cars down on Burlington Street. So that's the, you know, the trades, and it's the diversity that is the key to a sustainable economy. You know, depending on what goes up and down, we've got the whole picture. And that really helps us to achieve things like the low unemployment, 5.9%. And also, I mentioned this in my remarks today, you may have seen an article in the Globe about median incomes of Canada have risen more than the United States and many other places. And the median income in Hamilton has risen significantly from 10 to 15 years ago, when it was below 70,000 average family total income to in excess of $80,000. And we're ahead of many Canadian cities. So it's all coming together to make the city that we want to see in the city that we're so proud of, but there's much more to come. It actually started because of the radioactive isotope ability at the nuclear reactor. Are you aware of that, Councillor Ferguson? That's what drew Mr. Hoffman, Dr. Hoffman, to Hamilton in the first place, is that he could do some of the research based on the nuclear facility. So, that being said, we also met the Levy Restaurants people, biggest North American stadium food preparers, who are going to be doing the menus, and they're unbelievable. They put a sampling of the foods. I believe Councillor McCaddy, you were there. I think Councillor Ferguson might have been there. I'm sorry, Tom, and you were there, right? There was free food, right? I know, yeah. But wouldn't you agree, Councillor Jackson, that the food thing is going to be unbelievable? And I have offered a couple of ideas for a food selection. You could have a nice sausage in a bun, we'll call it an Oski weenie, and you quench your thirst with Oski Wawa. And holy Mackinac. May I please have a motion to approve? Thank you. Move a motion to approve the closed session minutes of the March 20th, 2004. Oh, go ahead. City manager has an announcement to make, and please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make public the results of our general manager search, which has lasted some 6 months. And,
we found a new general manager?
I have found a new general manager.
Oh, okay.
And so after a rather lengthy search, looking for an individual from either this country or our neighboring country to the south, looking for someone who's got a background in planning that can certainly work very effectively with this council, very effectively with this community, and certainly staff and senior management. So the individual that I had recommended to you last week at GIC and after tonight now is our new general manager. His name is Jason Thorne. Jason has a considerable amount of experience in a variety of management positions. He's worked for Metrolinx, in fact, was one of the chief contributors to the big move, the plan that we're now looking at. As well, he worked for a number of years for the Growth Secretariat. He was instrumental in Places to Grow legislation being created. In fact, the planning that is governing all of the municipalities in Southern Ontario. He is, as of the last 5 years, he's a principal in one of the largest planning firms in this country called Planning Alliance. Planning Alliance does work with a variety of clients, be it large and small-scale developers, as well as other interested parties. Planning Alliance has offices not just here in Canada, but around the world. Jason is as a planner myself, I can say, knowing what I do know about Jason and having the chance to meet with him several times, he is going to be a wonderful addition to this community. Jason is an engager. He's a very smart, strategic thinker. He is a problem solver. He is someone that, and I say this slightly tongue-in-cheek, all of us will look up to, given the fact he's about 6'7". Jason is right now trying to tie things up with his company. He's got files that has him working out west as well as in South America. He would be here tonight if he could. He's going to get here as quickly as he possibly can to meet all of you in public. He'll be working with you on a one-by-one basis to make sure that he's clear on your expectations and what he can bring to the table. I think this community is going to see that this is a rather young, energetic, very passionate person. He is, in fact, a Hamiltonian. As Jason has said to all of us, that there's a variety of reasons why he's making this decision to come here. And as he said, this is home. And he knows the momentum that we're experiencing. He is thrilled to be part of a team, part of a community that is moving solidly in the right direction and wants to contribute his many talents to that. So I know some of you know Jason, having worked with him. He's not just familiar with land use planning, regional planning, how the development community works. I think those that are in the environmental community will know him, having done some great work with the environmental community. Those that appreciate heritage will respect his views on that. He is very familiar with all the urban practices. I think a very skilled person. So I'm just happy to have him join us. And with that, he will be making himself available, I know, tomorrow to the media if they wish to try and get a hold of him. Mike will be coordinating that. There'll be an announcement going out shortly to all of council and the organization about him joining us. So all I can say is that I think at this time where Hamilton is at and where we're going, he is a wonderful addition to this community, and I know he will deliver well for you. So with that, thank you very much for the chance to introduce.
Thank you. And a Westdale grad. So a Hamiltonian dyed in the wool. Now, thanks, Mr. Murray. May I please have a motion to approve the closed session minutes of March 26th? Partridge, Ferguson, all in favor? Carried. Settlement of claims. Are we done with that? Oh, okay. Settlement of claims made under the Expropriations Act arising from an expropriation of 760. That's what I said. Yeah, we dealt with it. Bylaws, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes.
I'm sorry, I noticed and I put them out of my mind because I'm not supposed to be involved. It's the Carpenters Union, I believe, for the 12.1, and I have to declare a conflict. So it's just being consistent. Sorry, I'm sorry, Clerk, I didn't notice.
Okay. Bylaws and confirming bylaw. Councillor Pasuta, you have a motion to amend the bill list?
Yes, I do, Mayor Bertina. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Maria Pearson, that the bill list for April the 23rd, 2014 meeting of council be amended by adding bill numbers 095, 096, and 097, which read as follows, and renumbering the balance accordingly.
Any discussion on bill number 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, and 98? Motion to adjourn, please. Pearson, Johnson, all in favor. Carried. Thank you. Good night.